1. What is up, everybody on Mixer that's watching live? Everybody that is watching on YouTube afterwards, what's going on? I know it's been a long time, but we are finally here. We are finally back, and we are here with something really cool, something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and that's take a series of movies and kind of rank them and kind of have some live debate on which one's the best. You guys know me. I'm Wardog, and I guess that now would be a great
Makes
time
sense.
to introduce the rest of the guys that are going to be talking shop with me. So without further ado, we have the one and only Papa Tran, the one and only Brandon Potts, and the one and only, it's been a long time since you see him because he's a ghost. He's fallen off juice boards everywhere. You know him as the Red Deer Drone Baron, Minolta 1034. What's going on, guys?
Hi.
Wow, that intro. I mean, I really appreciate how much of an intro that you gave to everybody. I think that's what I want to say. I want to give you a little clap.
Thank you. Thank you.
Feels like he gave you way more of an intro
Thank you.
than me and Alvin.
I mean, that's the thing I think I like most about it, to be honest.
Well, you guys had no,
Yeah.
like, listen, next time we do this thing, we're coming up with cool nicknames previous so that, you know, I can use them in the intro.
My
Because this
cool
isn't the
nickname's
last time we're going to
Minolta.
do this. But we'll talk about that, like, after this is all over. That's right. This is not the only one. This is not the only movie franchise we'll be attacking. Whether you guys want to return for the other ones or not is your personal choice. But this won't be the last. Anyway,
Yeah, dude, I want to rate the Homeward Bound films.
dude, I said we'll talk about it after. Stop ruining the surprise.
Dude, Homeward Bound?
Dude,
Two?
I love those movies.
All right, so anyway, let's get into
Destroy.
how this is going to go. So, what I have done is I have, and I'm going to give credit where credit's due. I wanted to do a March Madness bracket of the MCU movies, but I didn't know how to fairly seed the movies, right? Because the number 1 seed is going to have an easier time at the beginning than the number, 15 seed. So, like, how was a fair way to do that? So I thought, let me use somebody else's opinion. So what I did was I took, if you guys know Kinda Funny over at youtube.com/kindafunny, a group of great guys, they did a great series called MCU in Review where they watched one movie a week from the MCU leading up to Infinity War and rated and reviewed them and ranked them until they had the definitive list of all 19 movies. So what I did was I took that list that they ended up with, and I just used that as my seeding. So number 1 is their number 1, number 2 is their number 2. So what you're going to see in the bracket is not one of our rankings. And then once we have some debate and we talk about, what movies we feel are better than others, and we get an ultimate champion of the mixer.com/Wardog TV Marvel bracket, all of us will then reveal our own personal lists, and then we'll just kind of have some conversation about, why we made some decisions that we made in our personal list, and we'll celebrate whatever decides to be our champion. But for now, I'm going to switch scenes over to what you guys are going to be seeing the rest of the time, which is our bracket here. You guys can see in the top left of the corner, everybody who's speaking, and then in the case that some Avengers Infinity War discussions take place, you guys will see this big red warning in the top of the screen as we're discussing Infinity War. So
Can you
if
make
you
it
don't,
blank?
I wish I could. I don't think I can.
Just turn
What's
the
the
element
siren
on and off
animation?
with OBS really fast.
Yeah, just like
Oh yeah, let me.
Yeah, there you go.
So you guys will see the word spoilers in the corner if you guys haven't seen Infinity War yet, but I do really encourage that you do go see it before you guys watch this. That way you can kind of leave your opinion, whether it's in the comments or in the chat if you're watching live. So we do encourage you guys to be interactive during this. But does anybody have anything else to say before we get started?
I just want to ask, Wardog, could you switch back to your camera quickly?
Yeah. What's up?
What type of dog are you?
A vagabond dog.
Oh, nice. Why did you choose to wear that shirt, buddy?
Because I actually didn't expect to do this face cam thing, so I didn't think I was gonna be on camera at all. I was just gonna start with
then
this.
maybe you should just
but
take
I
it
thought
off.
I thought it was more okay. Well, let's get started.
Perfect scene transfer time. That was good. That was good. That's exactly what I wanted. So how are we doing this? Like what? Iron
right.
Man 3 versus the Incredible Hulk?
So we're gonna go in the number order. So there's little numbers right here next to each matchup. We're just gonna go in the order that the matchups were made. So there's 3 play-in rounds because round 1 is play-in rounds because obviously 19 is an odd number for a bracket. There are 3 play-in rounds. The first one being the number 16 ranked Ironman 3 versus the number 17 ranked Incredible Hulk. Now, does anybody have any opening thoughts on either of these 2 movies? One, the other, how they face off, anything?
I think the Incredible Hulk should be disqualified because Edward Norton plays the Hulk in this movie, but obviously Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk. I don't think that it matches the continuity at all. I think it should be thrown out.
Dang.
But the Colonel is in Civil War.
That's the only thing that matches, and like he could just and Tony
And
Stark's
they directly
at the end,
mentioned
technically at the end of Incredible Hulk, Tony Stark walks up to Edward Norton. It's like you know.
So are you saying that Iron Man 1 should be disqualified?
As War Machine? I can forgive that because he's not a main character. But the Hulk, I mean, just like it was Edward Norton, it just feels to me. I agree, the Colonel is the same, but to me, whenever I watch The Incredible Hulk, it feels like its own movie disconnected from the MCU. And for that reason alone, I am not a fan of The Incredible Hulk because it puts a bad taste in my mouth. It just feels weird. Like the Don Cheadle War Machine thing feels weird for me too, but at least it was only one movie, like, and he wasn't the main character, so I'm not like, you know, like really attached to him.
I see where you're coming there, and where you're coming from there, and I definitely agree with the fact that like when you ask people to like list MCU movies, the one that is most popularly missed is The Incredible Hulk, just because there's really no feeling there during the movie that it was made with the intention to build a universe on top of. And I think that's a really important aspect to look at when we're looking at these movies is one of our criteria, like inner criteria, should be you know, how well does the movie help build the universe? And I think the character development of Tony Stark going through, you know, all the things with all the suits and like, you know, having that being his coping mechanism for things and then getting over that at the end of Iron Man 3 and destroying all of them. I think while compared to the rest of the MCU, that's not, you know, fantastic character development, that it at least has more value than the foundation that was attempted to be built with The Incredible Hulk.
You know what? I like your idea of comparing the character development because I agree. The Incredible Hulk was essentially, again, a whole movie introducing a character which has no bearing on the universe as a whole. And then, oh yeah, let's just throw out the main actor and put somebody else in there. Like it just, I hate that. But what I was going to say is that Wardog, let's throw the comparison. And someone said it in the chat. I want to call out Lay Torture for calling out the Silver Centurion. And like that's the thing is that like let's go with the climactic, because I think these Marvel movies all follow a certain amount of formula, right? So the climactic battles in both of these movies, the Incredible Hulk versus what's the name of the bad guy in that?
Abomination.
Abomination, yes.
Abomination. Yeah, exactly. I thought that fight was okay, but I thought the Iron Man 3, all the suits, the Centurion, like that final battle, that was the coolest part of Iron Man 3. Hands down, easily the most memorable part of the movie is the huge multi-suit battle. And I think that it wins in terms of just awesome action. Like I would way rather watch that than the slugfest between Hulk and Abomination that just kind of takes place in the street. I think like, you know, they each land big punches. There's some jumping. I can't even really remember it, but I remember the Iron Man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Does anyone, how do you get Papa Tran, Pots?
Yeah.
Much of the Hulk.
All right. Well, I disagree that it should just be disqualified right out of the gate, but I do agree that it is just not as good as the movie as Iron Man 3. 100%. There's like Wardog was getting into, there's so much more character development into a character that we've already spent 3 films with up until then, you actually have a lot more of an emotional connection and watching them grow and see where Tony Stark has come from and becomes. And yeah, I think this, especially the action set pieces at the end, where I just really dislike Iron Man 3's final fight at the end, but I still think that it's not nearly as bad as busting Harlem between Hulk and uglier looking Hulk. And I think you didn't touch on really with Iron Man 3 was, I know a lot of people hate it, but I really love how they handled the Mandarin and how they just completely twisted
I'm
it on what people were going
with
to
you on
expect.
Potts. They didn't give it away in the marketing. I'm with you on
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think that's really all I have to say, though.
yeah, when it comes down, like, if we really want to dumb this down, if I bring it down to like my, what it is in comparing two movies, in layman's terms, like, the better movie should, most of the time, the better movie is the one I want to see again. So when I look at two movies, a really big thing for me is which one would I less mind watching again in this case. Because in some cases, it's I would rather watch one movie over the other. In this case, I really wouldn't go out of my way to rewatch either of these movies. But which one would I less mind watching again? And I think I would less mind watching Iron Man 3 again rather than The Incredible Hulk.
We should just we haven't heard much from Papa Trent, so I want to hear Papa Trent's thoughts. But okay, I think it's safe to say Minolta, Potts, Wardog, we all vote for Iron Man 3. Papa Trent, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, nothing. I just don't remember much of the Hulk besides some of the like the Abomination fights. But other than that, though, yeah, Iron Man 3 for me.
Well, I think that's something to say about the Hulk. Is honestly, it's just not nearly as memorable as Iron Man 3 either. Like, I don't remember half of the stuff that happens in that movie.
There is one
I think we're in agreement.
remember about the Hulk, like the Incredible Hulk, is that I think there's an ice scene somewhere in the movie, and that actually teases Captain America 3 years before he got his own movie. Like, you see a faint silhouette of a man in ice with his round shield, which not that many people spotted.
Yeah. Because the gamma radiation was them trying to recreate the super soldier stuff, and that gets into like Abomination's origins, sort of about small teases.
All right, well then I guess that hey, Papa Tran, pick up the phone.
To shout out to the chat, I think character development is important, but I definitely agree that it's not always necessary, because you can have an incredibly plot-driven story where you don't really get to know the characters, but they take you on an amazing adventure. I agree that Monkey Boy, I love a character-driven plot is amazing and probably my favorite type of storytelling, but I don't think that it's necessary. I think that there's a lot of different ways to tell a story. You can tell a story entirely through narrative or voiceover or through so many different ways that you don't always need to have a really clear character development. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, especially in the MCU too, where each character gets like 3 or 4 films just in its current state, where there's a lot of different routes you can go with each character, and you can have that development in one film and have them just tell a very, very interesting story in another one.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually, honestly, no, but there is great character development in that. I'm jumping ahead, but I was going to say like Ragnarok, there is really good character development in that, but it's also an incredible adventure. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the characters didn't move forward one iota, that movie would still be great.
All right. So then I think we've unless anybody wants to last minute object, I will give the win over to Iron Man 3. And Iron Man 3 will move on in our little tournament here. Our next round, another play-in round, is going to be Captain America, the First Avenger, the 15th seed, versus the 18th seed, Thor. So I'll start off by saying I didn't find either one of these movies extremely entertaining for my personal taste. The only reason that I initially, and I'd be interested to hear what everybody else has to say to see if my opinion gets swayed here a little bit. The only thing that I have to say is that I think that the the dynamic duo of Steve Rogers and Bucky in Captain America is one of the only things that is in my mind that puts it above Thor.
I mean, Thor was just a mess. Like it was a problem because it didn't know what it wanted to be. It was like, oh yeah, I'm going to introduce this character, but like at the same time, this character has amnesia. So how do you introduce somebody that doesn't know anything about themselves? And it's like, oh, like you're supposed to like learn about themselves somehow, but then like that doesn't really work. And then there's also like it had so much going on. It was a mess. At least Captain America was a straightforward, well executed, like not expertly executed, but well executed film that made sense. It was it was a by the books origin story, but at least a by the books origin story is better than the fucking mess that is Thor. Like Thor just doesn't know what it wants to do. It like wants to be an origin story, but it also wants to be other shit, and it just ends up really going nowhere, in my opinion. Whereas at least Captain America, and I agree, the chemistry between Natalie Portman and Chris Hemsworth isn't nearly as good as the chemistry between Steve Rogers and Bucky. I really preferred that.
Potts, any words?
Well, I don't think that I hate Thor as much as both of you seem to. I still prefer Captain America, and I'm gonna put in my vote for Captain America. But I think that Thor's dynamic specifically with Loki, and Loki absolutely is not great, like not superb in this. He really hits his stride in Avengers, but I think his character at least lends something to this movie that it isn't just a complete waste of time. And honestly, some of the comedy is pretty decent in Thor. The fish out of water, God in like a small New Mexico small town or whatever the fuck.
Hey man, don't get me wrong. When he smashes that coffee cup down, he's like another, and like that gets me every time. There's a good moment.
But the thing is, it didn't stay in that vein. Like that was the whole problem, is that like that story would be great, but it's like it's also a love story and it's an origin story and there's a big
it spreads itself
like,
really thin.
Yeah. So frustrating to me because it could have been really good. Because I agree, like Thor is a great character, and I think that it was just one of those cases that I totally agree that Loki and his interactions are what helped, but obviously the issue there is that like I don't think that he was properly utilized. I think that was the problem, is that
Definitely
he's kind of one note in that movie, and that's that's the thing, is that like it isn't until he really gets fleshed out that you see the real good chemistry that you're looking for, because even that would be comparable to the Cap chemistry.
Exactly.
Alvin, any oh, go ahead, Potts.
Because I didn't really just talk about Captain America very much, but I feel like it's hard to root against Captain America, even the first one, which isn't a great film, but seeing Steve Rogers' arc and just being so charismatic and just being such a little do-gooder little boy is just it's hard to hate Captain America. I do think that's just a more put together film that knew what it was trying to do.
How do you vote against little body, big head Steve Rogers?
How do you vote against little body, big head Steve Rogers?
I mean, so here's my thing is that
the effects were like legitimately really good on that. I actually honestly thought they did a pretty good job.
So here's
that was 2010, 2011. It did look pretty good for.
Yeah.
So my issue when we go through this is that I should have prefaced the whole thing with none of the maybe there's an argument for, but none of these are objectively awful movies. Like I would rewatch any of these movies and not feel like my time was completely wasted. Maybe except for like Thor: The Dark World. But like it's the fact that
Thor: The Dark World right now. Can we do that?
That's next. So but like my thing with the first Captain America is that I do feel that it's on the lower rung of the totem pole just because of how much it gets outshined by everything else in the MCU. So like it's not like just if you were to just look at that movie by itself, not comparing it to anything, it's not awful. But just when it comes down to comparing it to all of these movies that go, and it seems like the further we go along in this MCU, the greater they get. That it's not a matter of fact of this movie is bad or this movie is not a good movie. It's just the fact that we are comparing it against a library of really, really good. It's a really good selection of films. So it just gets outshined by its competition rather than the fact that it's a bad movie. And I'd be interested to hear if Alvin has anything to say about this matchup.
Okay, so So for Captain America and Thor, I prefer Captain America over Thor. More in line with what everyone has, where everyone has said, like, you know, Thor's a hot mess. Because the movie isn't really Thor. Like, you have Thor at the beginning and you have Thor at the end, but you don't get Thor in the middle. It's more of blonde man meets human world, the movie, as opposed to Captain America, where you're getting Captain America.
And it doesn't even it doesn't even make logical sense though, because like he retains all of his mannerisms and he still acts like Thor, but he has no memory. Like, how does amnesia work then? Do you not remember? I just don't like that.
Did he have amnesia? I don't even remember.
He didn't.
Yeah,
Right. He didn't have any memories. Am I right?
It was like a weird thing, but isn't that like how amnesia like kind of works in movies? Is like you forget what you like, you know, you somehow magically forget the important things that would like build into the plot, but you like kind of remember all the bullshit that like doesn't really like help you out as much.
Yeah, it's a writing tool. It serves the plot.
Yeah.
Also, Thor completely wasted Hawkeye and thus does not deserve to be in this competition of reckoning.
Damn.
Yeah, I forgot Hawkeye was in the movie.
Yeah, I kind of forgot he was
Yes,
in the
you
movie
did, because
too.
he didn't do anything.
Yeah,
he just
yeah,
stood
yeah.
there.
He just stared at Thor most of the
Hawkeye's
time.
an underappreciated
He
asset of the
squinted his
universe.
eyes.
Hawkeye's an unappreciated asset of the universe.
Green Skull is
Absolutely
correct in
he is.
chat.
All right, so I'll put it to the final question. Does anybody disagree that Captain America, the first Avenger, moves on and Thor is eliminated from the competition?
Cut Thor. Cut him.
Smite him.
All
No,
right. Well, then we are going to go
Cast him out. There you
with
go. You have to
Captain
throw a
America. Yeah, I almost messed that one up real quick.
By the way, as you're filling out this bracket, you should totally put it as like 4-0, so you can look back and see where the big sort of
Oh,
conversation-
that's a good point. All right,
Oh,
so
good
that's
call, yeah.
dude. The Potts. This is why I brought you on. The man with the good
Yeah.
ideas.
The smart boy.
So
The
this
smart
is-
kid.
A 4-0.
Yo, what up, chat? What up, chat? Mr. Hot Legs up in the chat.
Okay.
All right. I'm excited about this one. I'm excited about this one.
So
We know
let-
who's gonna lose. We
let
know who's
the
gonna lose.
dumping-
Let's shit on Dark World.
Let the dumping commence of the
Yeah.
number 14 ranked Avengers Age of Ultron versus the Thor the Dark World of the 19th seed.
Okay, I'm just
So
gonna say,
I'll let
Age
you
of
guys
Ultron,
go. Go ahead.
Age of Ultron did not waste Hawkeye. He didn't. They, in
Agreed.
fact, maybe they used him a little bit too much. Maybe just a little bit. But I know a lot of people dislike Age of Ultron. Honestly, rewatching these, because I watched along with the Kind of Funny MCU interview.
Yep.
I liked both of these movies more than I had initially going into them expected to like them.
Agreed.
I liked, despite Thor: The Dark World, taking who is my favorite modern doctor and turning him into a non-English speaking elf for the entire movie with very vague motivations and everything. I thought Dark World was at the very least better than the first Thor in like just barely over the line. But I think Age of Ultron, I liked Spader's
Yeah, James Spader.
version of Ultron a lot more than I guess a lot of people seem to. Even if he was kind of cracking more jokes than he should.
Oh, we just saw it. We just saw your list on
It's
stream.
okay.
Wardog.
It's okay. I'm just moving
Exposed.
it. It's fine.
spoilers.
Back up the stream, everyone. Screen cap. Screen cap.
It's fine. I'll go first.
Leaked. How many nudes do you have back there?
16. All right, keep going.
Ooh,
Too many. Oh,
But I don't think anybody here, I can't imagine, is going to make the argument that Age of Ultron deserves less to move up in this bracket than Thor: Goddamn the Dark World.
Thor, goddamn the Dark World.
Go ahead, Jeff. I can feel your blood like pumping. Go ahead.
like honestly, like here's the thing. Here's what's funny is that like my blood isn't really that pumping because I walked out of Thor: The Dark World. I immediately took a forget me now and I forgot the entire film. I honestly have no resentment towards it because I do not remember what occurred inside the movie theater. Obviously, it was just too awful for my brain to handle.
Yeah.
Whereas Avengers Age of Ultron, while it obviously had some problems, I agree with Potts. James Spader's Ultron was great. I thought his delivery, his lines, everything about it was super cool. Even if the movie itself just suffered from, I think, a lot of honestly, I really feel like, obviously, the fact that Joss Whedon hasn't worked on any of the films since then, I think the studio just really got too hands-on and just really fucked that movie up, like super bad. And that is what happened with Ultron. But it's still a lot better than Thor: The Dark World, which honest to God, I'm not making this up. I do not remember that movie.
Is by far the least memorable MCU movie.
I
I've
think it
never
was
been on this
like super forgetful. Like I remember after the first time I watched it, I really didn't remember anything that happened. Then the second time I watched it, it was like I was basically going in blind. Papa Tran, any insight on these two movies?
I prefer Age of Ultron over Thor: The Dark World. I mean, I don't want to say I enjoyed them equally. I do enjoy Ultron more than Dark World, but yeah, no, James Spader, I felt like he was the perfect Ultron, especially with like the tone of voice he did and everything
that
like
voice.
that. And
Oh man.
and of course the idea where he kept on using Pinocchio because you know the idea of being tied to strings and whatnot.
Dude, so good.
Like it was a really good analogy that he kept on using. It's just sad that like what Jeff mentioned, like Marvel intervened and so many stuff were like cut out of the movie and then restitched it like into like a weirdness. But for Thor: The Dark World, yeah, I definitely enjoyed it more than the original Thor, like a lot more, because again, the original Thor just wasn't much going on for it, not much going for it at all. But yeah, no, there was lack of the villain's ambition per se, and yeah, no, I pretty much felt like Jeff. I sort of forgot most of what was going on in Thor. Besides, hey, let's bring Jane to Asgard and meet my mother. Because
Oh, his mother died though. You don't remember
Right.
that emotional impact moment when Thor's mom got killed? Me
She did
neither.
die.
Dude, I was
Didn't you
definitely
Thor's mom
so I
again?
was definitely gonna bring
I-
that up. Is like that Thor: The Dark World kind of like, it kind of felt cheesy because like it kind of felt like they wanted it to feel like there was like stakes, and they were like, yo, the people watching this movie are gonna be like, oh shit, this movie has stakes because we're gonna kill somebody like towards the beginning of the movie, and like the mom dies or whatever, and like everybody's just like, yeah, and like and I felt like the movie like really hinged on that moment, because imagine if that movie would have actually had something at stake. And like that could have changed the whole movie, but it absolutely didn't. Like it was like a cheap shot. They were afraid to like go and take the whole risk of like trying to kill somebody important, and it fell flat. While Avengers Age of Ultron, at least what that movie had going for it was it introduced us to some characters that were that end up being pretty pivotal in the universe. And it has moments, at least, where I didn't feel like Thor: The Dark World had any moments. Like somebody put in the chat, it was Monkey Boy put in the chat that he was talking about the moment where they're talking about, they're all like kind of drinking at that party at the Avengers Tower, and Thor puts the hammer down on the table, and everybody's trying to lift the hammer. And they have a great callback to a comic where I forget the name of that issue comic, but it's where Captain America is able to wield Mjolnir. And, they have that great callback to that comic where Steve Rogers goes and it kind of budges. And then you see the camera focus in on Thor and his eyes are kind of bulging because he's like, oh, shit, he just moved. It moved. Like, did anybody else see that? And then they're like all cracking jokes about it. Like, if you put the hammer in the elevator and you make the elevator go up, does the elevator still go up? Because the elevator's not worthy. Like there's like great moments like that. Stan Lee has a great cameo in that movie where he's a drunk veteran at the party.
That one is incredible. You're right. Yeah.
Excelsior.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like you can call back moments to that movie, whereas I have a hard time doing that with Thor: The Dark World.
I can't. I physically cannot do it because of I took that.
Also, to add note with the. That's like how like every final battle sequence is like the most grandest thing for any of the MCU movies. That wasn't the case with the Dark World. It was literally, imagine this. Imagine like a PUBG match where the circle's so tiny, all you have to do is throw smoke grenades. You can't see shit for like 2 inches. That's pretty much Thor: The Dark World's end battle. You can't see shit 2 inches in front of you. It's just red smoke everywhere. It is bad. It is absurd.
All right, Thor the Dark Turd loses 4-0. Let's just
All right.
move on.
Yeah. I'm down. All
We're-
right.
Worth noting on top of that, Alvin, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. usually kind of at least reacts to the movies coming out. The episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that came out after Dark World opens with the team of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. complaining that they have to clean up the mess that Thor caused. Not anything like grand about it. They're just like, oh my god, we seriously all of
God
this?
damn it. Freaking
All right,
God,
That
guys.
is Thor the Dark World.
So we're
Thor
going.
the Dark World is a mess that nobody deserves to clean up.
So we are going in the
Oh,
order
no,
that the
that's
bracket
what's next?
is.
I don't
So
want to do this one.
get
This
ready,
sucks,
because
dude.
now it's hard. The number 8 seed Guardians of the Galaxy versus the number 9 seed Iron Man.
Ooh.
We've had
God
three very easy
damn.
rounds until
Pass.
now.
Pass. Yeah, I'm with Green.
Yeah,
Pass.
I'm ready for a pass.
Hard pass.
I'm ready for
I
a pass.
can't do it. I can't.
So-
Don't make me do it.
This is worth noting right now because it'll come up at some point, if not this round. If it comes 2-2 with us in here, do we throw it to the chat for the tiebreaker?
Oh, I put a poll in the chat. Yeah, and the chat breaks the
Yeah,
tie.
all right.
Yep.
Cool.
I like it. I like it. Yeah. No. I mean, I think. Okay. I'm gonna go with. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna say Iron Man for sure.
Whoa,
Like,
whoa, whoa,
Guardians
wait.
of
Let's
the
have some
Galaxy-
conversation here.
Oh my
I'm
god.
because I'm on the fence. Like I'm ready
My
to be
vote-
swayed either way.
Okay. My vote is for
We're ready to
Iron
be
Man.
pushed off.
Because yeah, like first of all, I think that's the thing is that like Iron Man is. It's like I don't know how do I say the cornerstone? Like how else do I like I think that something has to be said if we're gonna talk about universe building, right? Like Wardog, you said it yourself, right? The MCU universe building is a facet of criticism we should talk about.
I did say that.
If you want to talk about foundational, we would not have anything. You like this is the Jesus Christ. Like this is the Muhammad. This is the Buddha. Like that is Iron Man to a certain extent, and so I think that like like I said, I think that it's the cornerstone of the whole MCU, and it's kind of what everything rests on. And if you want to talk about the thing that builds the universe, there's not many films that are building it more than Iron Man. And while Guardians of the Galaxy is a great movie, and I really liked it, I think Iron Man is almost a near perfect movie. If you want to talk about story symmetry and just the structure of the film itself, and like from a raw like plot perspective, it's beautifully done in terms of like Tony Stark confronting his father and his company, losing to it as the very first confrontation, going through an incredible road of trials, and then coming back into that same fight with the Iron Man suit, with that final battle. Not only was it a beautiful final battle, but it also meant so much to the character and was so important to him growing and becoming Iron Man. It's just like it's a gorgeously made movie, and it's really well done. Guardians of the Galaxy is great, and it's really high up there, but Iron Man is like in all of superhero movies, I think Iron Man is up there in terms of just like really well done.
Yeah, and the thing that like has me on the fence is I don't know what's more impressive, because the thing that like I tend to like give Guardians of the Galaxy a point for is the fact that Iron Man was this movie that I remember coming out, and I was like when it was being promoted and stuff, I was like, this movie is gonna be sick. Like I expect this movie to be, just to blow me away. And then when the Guardians of the Galaxy was like announced, like like we saw it on the MCU schedule, but we didn't have any like trailers or anything for it. We didn't really know how that movie was gonna flow, what the mood of that movie was gonna be. I was just kind of like, like I'll go see it because it's MCU, but like, I'm not really a Guardians of the Galaxy fan. But that movie made me a fan of that. Like that movie introduced those characters to me and was like, man, I didn't know shit about these guys before, but now I love them. Now I care about that cast of characters. And I don't know what's more impressive is just the fact that that movie like made me fall in love with that cast, or Iron Man just being, the only thing that you can kind of like say is the only thing you can say about Iron Man is that it's basically the Mona Lisa of the MCU, you know? It is the classic. It is the creme de la creme. I just don't know what's more impressive to me.
I think it also, if we're going to talk about, obviously these movies follow that formula, and it was also key in not only establishing the baseline for the MCU, it sort of established the formula for what a Marvel movie looks like and does at the box office. There's been variations on that, and that's proven to be successful, but once Iron Man came out, that to a certain extent was the template because it was just so good.
Potts, Alvin?
Oh man.
Oh boy, this.
I'm just this is the critical thinking portion of this.
Yeah. Like these two films did something absolutely great. Like again, Iron Man kickstarted the whole MCU. It is the foundation that is the MCU. But Guardians also did something that most of the other MCU movies haven't done, which is you grab a cast of heroes, so in this case the Guardians, right? That no one knows about unless you're like the most dedicated of like the most dedicated Marvel fan. Like no one knew about them. So they gave no shits about it. They're like, it looks interesting, but like, do I really care? Like, you know, with Captain America or Iron Man and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And the moment that movie came out, it boom, blew everyone's expectations out of the water, and everyone fell in love with them.
Mm.
So it's so hard because they're both fantastic movies, but it's like you're going against the founder of everything versus like the underdog, I guess, for a lack of a better explanation.
And I think what makes this matchup really hard is that the fact that this shows the two kind of, like, if you want to break it down to simple terms, the two kind of directions that the MCU tends to go in. One is like a badass, pedal to the metal, superhero kick-ass movie, which is like Iron Man. And then Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of the more charismatic, you know, hitting you with jokes, making things funny, but still being cool at the same time kind of thing. And that's where, like, the James Gunn versus Jon Favreau thing kind of comes into play. Like, the more serious, badass movie that was really great, or, like, the funny movie. And, like, that theme was really apparent to me when I was doing my personal list, but, like, I didn't expect us to like have a matchup like this so early where the two styles of the MCU kind of clash.
I was going to say that I think Papa Tran and Wardog, you spoke to it as well. Like I think you're absolutely right in that. What my original point, Iron Man, setting out that formula and everything. The thing that Guardians of the Galaxy, I think what it really did was simplified down to the core. Is it threw that formula out to a certain extent, and James Gunn made completely his own movie that was absolutely perfect to the tone of Guardians of the Galaxy, and everyone loved it. Like, it was very true to the source material, but it didn't follow. I don't think it follows a lot of the conventions because, like you said, there's not one hero. There's no real origin story. There's a team of people, and it's so different. But it was incredibly good, and that's the thing, is that I think Guardians stands out as that movie that said, yeah, there's a whole bunch of MCU movies or whatever, but we're the Guardians of the fucking Galaxy. We're like so different and off the wall, but. You know, James Gunn, obviously, he did such a good job of, like you guys said, making them memorable, making them lovable, and everyone fell in love with them. And I think that was the thing, is that at that time when Guardians came out, everyone was getting a little tired of the MCU format and the movies. And I think Guardians really like blew everyone and was like, whoa, you know, this is actually different. And like breathed a lot of life into things when things were feeling, to me at least, a little stale because it was so different.
All right, I'll give Potts some final words here, and then we'll get our votes.
I don't think there's too much to add, but it does go back to something that you were talking about earlier, which is, out of these two movies, which one would I, if I had just 2 hours to spare and I was giving these two movies my hands, which one would I rather sit down and watch? And I would rather watch Guardians of the Galaxy. If it's just Tony Stark as a character versus the Guardians as characters, as that. You know, as an ensemble.
But how is that your final? Like, that's your final. You know, like factor of judgment is like what you would just watch on a Saturday afternoon. Like, because I don't know if I would just.
No,
watch
which movie would I prefer to watch?
No, but I mean, like, I think, like, think about like Breaking Bad, right? Breaking Bad is an incredible series, like one of like critically acclaimed, Emmy award winning. But you're not always in the mood to like get into Breaking Bad, right? Like
Sure.
it's fucking killer, but like you got to be into that, right? And I feel like to a certain like you have to like because I kind of agree with you in that like if I'm just gonna chill out on a Saturday, I'll put Guardians of the Galaxy on because it's way easier for me to just look over and like, oh yeah, this is a cool scene and like engage with that. But Iron Man as a film, taken as a whole, I think is a better, well-constructed film. Even if it doesn't have that same like, I think watchability is what you're talking about, but I think that's only one factor of like what makes a movie.
It
good.
entirely is, and I think I didn't make myself clear enough that is not the sole reason that I'm choosing Guardians over Iron Man. I think there's just so much more between those characters that makes me actually care about those characters. I don't think that either of them have very memorable like villains, or like Obadiah is fine as Obadiah, but once he puts on the giant Iron Man suit and is just big Iron Man, it just completely loses me. So much more than Ronan. I think Ronan was a better villain, a better counter to that group. I just feel like it's the more I just think it's a better movie.
You know, and
Like,
and
it's
now
not
that
even past rewatchability.
now that you say that, I am almost swayed in the Guardians' favor just because I feel that the plot line of Guardians is more important to the MCU as a whole because it is a plot line about an Infinity Stone. So looking back on it now, that I feel as though the Guardians of the Galaxy had higher stakes than Iron Man. I think it's time for us to cast some votes. Alvin, Guardians of the Galaxy or Iron Man?
See, this is hard. Okay, I would get. Okay, I'm going based off Potts' logic of if there's a movie I would rewatch over and over again, which would it be?
And again,
I'm gonna go,
you should
I'm gonna
base
go
your entire
Guardians.
vote off of that.
I'm gonna go on Guardians.
That's not what I was
because,
saying.
Because I watched that with my parents on the big 4K TV, and I go with because I'm a very mellow person when it comes to rating movies. Because it's a flat line for me, right? It's not up or down and stuff like that. It's just it's a flat line. So going based off of like, let's say someone's opinion, like my mom's, she's gonna get more of a kick out of Guardians versus Iron Man, where it's gonna be like, oh, that's cool, but Guardians is gonna get like an absolute big kicker out of her. So Guardians for me.
All right, Minolta, where are you going? Jeff? Oh no.
The juice
I'm
board
going with
killed him.
I'm going with the Iron Man. I'm going with the
Going
Iron
with
Man.
Iron
sorry.
Man, okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just like I agree. Guardians of the Galaxy is probably a little bit more of a rewatchable film, but I think that like when you consider all the factors and like I don't know, I mean, Obadiah in the suit, like, I mean, it's a little bit weak, but at the same time, I mean, I think that like again, I think that overall when you take into take into account the like again the thematic. I'm trying to word this correctly, and it's not coming out the way that I want it to. But I think that while the Obadiah in the suit thing was a little bit hokey, again, I think that it set up that precedent sort of these heroes battling someone that is like that was the template of MCU. And while looking back on it now through the vision of nostalgia, it might seem a little bit weird. At the time, I think it was actually really cool. And I think that again, the symbology and the thematic consequences of that battle, because again, it really is Tony Stark against his father and his company. And so like Obadiah in the suit and like this pastiche, like, you know, impersonation of it versus Tony's actual tech that he's built, it had a lot more consequences to me. And while I agree that Guardians of the Galaxy had a plot line that involved an Infinity Stone, I still think that Iron Man was the foundational film and the thing that started the whole MCU. And so while if we're talking about Infinity Stones as like just like involving the plot line, then Infinity War has to win because it has all of them in it, right? And so I don't think that like a plot involving an Infinity Stone necessarily leads to world building. And I don't think that the Guardians of the Galaxy movie actually did a whole lot of world building other than introducing an Infinity Stone or the concept of an Infinity Stone. Other than that, like it's not really that big. And by the way, the Tesseract and everything else, that was the first Infinity Stone. So it's not even the first one. It's just the first one that's like in stone form, not in a cube form. So like, I don't know. I just got to give it time.
Yeah.
All right, Potts?
I think that it all depends on how much you weigh like the sort of scoring that we're kind of kicking around in our heads against each other, which is Iron Man does the better job of, I think, building the universe, and I think building how superhero movies are being made 10 years later. Absolutely. But I do appreciate that Guardians, that's just something that it doesn't do. It sticks to itself. It doesn't focus on really anything else around it. It comes out, like, I think this came out right before Age of Ultron as this, oh yeah, it's in the MCU. It has literally nothing to do with anything else going on. And that's just, especially when it dropped, was just so refreshing to have something just off to the side, that you're not sitting there, every little thing being like, oh, this is going to lead to that, and just it being so self-contained and caring only about itself and not the greater universe. I think there's something to say about that. And another kind of side note, back to the Obadiah thing. Honestly, in his case, it makes sense for his character, absolutely, because that's all he wants to do is be the replacement for Tony and be the bigger, better version of what Tony's, built in with Stark Industries and everything. But I still I constantly lean Guardians as what is in my head. What movie do I prefer? Not just rewatchability, but just what I feel is the better movie, and I think that's Guardians.
All right, so we're at a point to Guardians, and so I've during the conversation I've flipped sides like at least 3 times, just because. So like I ask myself, like, which one of these like internal factors that I'm basing my critiques on, like which ones are more important to me and stuff. And I think universe building is really important. I also think having it's probably not the right way to phrase this, but like having a good continuity of character, so like the characters feel the same every time. Obviously, these are both movies where we're experiencing the casts for the first time, so it's really important that you establish the character for the audience immediately, so they know how this character is going to interact within the universe throughout the existence of their being, however long they live in the universe. I'm gonna give my point to Iron Man just because something I didn't get to talk about when I was discussing the movies was the fact that Iron Man actually shows all the different sides of Tony Stark as a character, and how complex his personality is, and how, at one minute, when there's nothing at stake, he's, that playboy millionaire who really doesn't, who's really just seems all about himself. But then when it comes down to when things are at stake, and when he's fighting Obadiah on the rooftop, and Pepper has to hit the button because he knows it's the right thing, and he knows he's putting himself out there, and that's directly in line with what he does in Age of Ultron when he or in Avengers when he flies out into space. And like I think that Iron Man I think it's the Mona Lisa is what I'm trying to get at. I think it established the MCU formula. It's a formula that's withstood the test of time so far, and that's just where I decide to put my point. So we'll go to the chat for a poll here live on
I'd like
Mixer.
to add on to my my answer.
Go for it while I'm making this poll.
So the reason why I chose Guardians over Iron Man is well, not aside from the rewatchability shenanigans that me and Pods were started talking about, the biggest thing is, like, again, I would have 100% given Iron Man the win. I would love to, but the biggest thing with Iron Man is, like, when they introduced the movie, it's sort of like a character that I don't want to say almost everyone knows of, but it's one of those, you've heard of Iron Man or you've seen Iron Man. Even if you don't care about comic books, you've seen it. It's sort of like Batman or Spider-Man. Like, even if you don't care about comic books, you're bound to have seen him at least once or twice in a lifetime, right? Unlike the Guardians, where it's like, who the hell are they? Like what the hell is, like, Guardians of the Galaxy? Like, what
Voting
is
is live. Go, go, go.
So that's why I chose Guardians, is because who? Like, that has a bigger impact, because, like, Iron Man, while the foundation, everyone knows Iron Man, right? Like you watch a movie, it's like holy shit, it's an Iron Man movie. That's cool. But then when you watch Guardians, it's like, well, geez, like I never knew about these characters, and now I'm in love with them. Like,
okay, but like, I don't know if I totally agree. Like, you're acting like Iron Man is like Spider-Man or Superman or Batman level. I think Iron Man before the MCU movies was C to D list superhero at best. I remember actually when that movie was coming out saying like, yo guys, let's go see Iron Man. And people being like, what the fuck is Iron Man? Like people did not. I disagree with the fact that like a lot of people know Iron Man. I think that nerds know Iron Man, but like I think that he was definitely like, if Superman, Batman, like those guys are A tier. I'd say B tier is maybe like Spider-Man. I think Iron Man to a certain extent was like C tier, because like even like Doctor Strange is more of a like obscure character.
Oh, that's a C D tier. You know, if we're just going based on like the popularity to the masses, like Doctor Strange is real out there.
Yeah, like I think that there are a lot of. Yeah, I think that Iron Man was definitely not as big as he is now. Yeah, Spider-Man's probably A. Yeah, I probably misspoke there. Obviously, I try to like I'm very biased towards Spider-Man because he's my favorite Marvel hero. So I try to lean my place of him back to compensate.
All right. So with that being said, Iron Man is going to be the first movie to enter round 3.
It's a smart chat you got there, Wardog. It's a real smart chat. They know what to talk about.
They're a smart chat. I love it. Make sure you guys follow mixer.com/WardogTV. All right. Make sure you tweet out the stream. Let's get it going.
For what it's worth too, between both of those, I don't have a problem with Guardians not moving forward. I think Iron Man absolutely
this is definitely
and
I'll say
between your children.
Yeah, I'll say this again. This is one of those where like if I make a personal list and they end up next to each other, that's the one where I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter which one's above the other, you know. They're both equally as great to me.
In different ways, yeah.
Of course, yeah. So, round number 5, we have the 4th seed Thor Ragnarok from Taika Waititi. I hope I said that right.
The New Zealand goddess
versus the 13th seed Iron Man 2 sequel from Jon Favreau. I want my bird.
This is something else to bring up in this. So the first 3 rounds were discussions of which movie is less bad, and the last round that we just had was a discussion of which movie is actually better. So when do we get like? Is there any discussion worth having around this? Is what I'm saying.
I kind of agree. I think it's Ragnarok is pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, like it's really obvious.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's no way Iron Man 2 takes out Ragnarok for any of us because it is just such a good like Ragnarok just I mean, again, I think it took Thor and Thor the Dark World, 2 movies that had no fucking clue what Thor was about, had no idea that the character could be funny at all, other than making him like funny in a weird oddity, like relating him to human way, not funny in like his actual character way. And like Ragnarok is the movie that it was like, okay, now we get Thor, here's his like that's his actual first movie almost, you know?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really puts Thor above Iron Man 2 is the fact that obviously both movies that are in a series, you know, Thor has 3 movies, Iron Man has 3 movies, and Thor Ragnarok is, you know, I think Marvel knew that Thor was, you know, they're not stupid people. They knew that Thor was one of the weaker legs that they were standing on, so they knew they needed to change something up, and they weren't afraid to do a complete 180 on the Thor franchise and completely turn this thing on its head, turn it basically into a kick-ass comedy that didn't sacrifice great action scenes in order to make a funnier movie. And I think that's where it really takes hold. This is Thor Ragnarok is the prime example. It is the diamond in the rough of Thor, but it's also the best example of those. When I was talking before about the MCU being able to take 2 paths, Thor Ragnarok is the prime perfect example of how to do a comedy-based superhero movie. And Iron Man 2 would just like it didn't deliver on, it went the other way where it went trying to go for a more kick-ass, pedal to the metal, really cool superhero movie. But I think they just rested on the success of Iron Man 1 too much. Whiplash wasn't really a cool character. I really didn't enjoy him as a villain. And yeah, I just Sam Rockwell did a great job in the movie
I was
as
gonna say, I gotta
Hammer.
shout out Sam Rockwell. He was
Yeah,
so killer in that movie.
He was great in
You
that movie.
hated him, right? Like you really like I don't know about you, but I really fucking hated him so much. Just wanted to punch him right in the face every time he was on screen. And it was like, and I love Sam Rockwell as an actor. Like he's so good, but like his
Yeah,
acting
he
in
did
that
the
movie-
perfect job at making that character.
Yeah,
100%.
and he's just like an insufferable dick, right? And like everything he says is just dripping with that fucking tone. It just, oh, it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah,
he did
for
a
me
really
it
good
was
job.
it was the character that Mickey Rourke was playing that just didn't
Oh, yeah.
it didn't scratch the itch for me.
It's just like Mickey
want
Rourke
my
with a
bird.
Russian accent, just like
Yeah.
says stuff in a room. Like that's what all of his scenes are.
my bird.
I want my bird. Yeah, I told you, drone is better. Like that's all it is. There's no like, talking about character development. There's no character at all there. Like it's just like, oh yeah, he had like it reminds me of like League of Legends Wardog. Like oh yeah, he has like a dark and stormy like a you know like a
Yeah.
you know what I mean. He has a dark and mysterious past, and he is angry about it.
And he wants his bird.
Yeah, he didn't get his bird.
Yeah.
Pop-
This is
Tran?
not my bird.
Papa Tran thoughts?
Of course, the obvious answer is Ragnarok over Iron Man. I don't remember much of Iron Man 2 except for like the electric whips and like the suitcase armor. Like that's all
Dude,
I
the
remember.
suitcase armor. I was about to say that's the best part, right?
That
Suitcase
is the
armor,
coolest
killer.
shit ever. Yeah, the coolest shit. And then again, the only thing I remember is like the electric whips and like that's it. It's like okay, that's cool, I guess. But like
Car in
super
half with the
suitcase.
whips.
Oh yeah, that's right. He wasn't
And
it a
Elon
Formula
Musk.
car he cuts in half, right? I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, the
Elon
the
Musk
race.
was driving that car.
Yeah. Elon Musk is dead in the MCU.
Oh,
Oh no.
No!
All right, so does anybody have any objections that Thor Ragnarok moves on over Iron Man 2?
Yeah,
All
I
right,
I
shut
didn't
up,
say much
you're-
about it. We'll discuss Thor a little bit more in round 12.
Yeah,
I have
we-
my criticisms of it when it comes to that. When there's actually something to criticize it for.
All
and
right,
some-
save it, yeah, because this is a blow
Yeah,
over
yeah, yeah.
round, so you know it's not really.
100%.
And the next one's kind of a blow over round too.
Listen,
Uh,
everybody else got the talk, Wardog.
Well, no, because if you have like a listen, I really don't have anything bad to say about Thor Ragnarok. So if you do, I want to save it for when it actually matters and when it
Absolutely.
can actually make a difference.
Yeah, no, agreed.
All right, so then we'll move on to round 6. Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the number 5 seed, versus the number 12 seed, Ant-Man. So we have an origin story movie versus a sequel and one of the best movies in the MCU in my opinion.
Yeah,
Anybody
it's-
take over? Go ahead.
Dude, it's got to be Winter Soldier. It's got to be like Ant-Man is a funny movie, but like in terms like if we're gonna talk about some of the facets we talked about, MCU building, it doesn't really do a lot. Like sure, it sets up Civil War so that Ant-Man can be in it and be big.
Yeah, exactly.
it
For only
seems-
for Ant-Man to actually be
Giant
in is
Man.
the only thing that it sets up.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't like Ant-Man said like Ant-Man is completely off on its own, and like yeah, it does kind of just follow the Iron Man introduction formula. Don't get me wrong, Paul Rudd's fucking hilarious. The movie's great, but it
Let's
doesn't
just
really
Paul
do
Rudd
a
on the
lot.
screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wait, can I?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was talking about.
yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. It's Ant-Man. There you go. But like
That's Ant-Man.
That's him.
It's just it's a good movie, but yeah, I totally agree. Like Winter Soldier was like, especially after how bad First Avenger, well, not super bad because obviously it made it past Thor, but like you know, First Avenger was okay, but Winter Soldier was actually like, oh, it was so good because like everything that you liked and remembered about First Avenger is what it gets turned on its head, and like you're just. Oh man, it's such a solid film, and
Yeah.
talking about MCU build up, it does a great job. Character development, it does a fucking killer job. It doesn't have a whole lot of funny moments. The ones that it does have, I don't know if they're that great. But like you said, Wardog, it's of the two paths, and on the other path, the not so funny path, it kills it. It just really really does, especially because
Absolutely.
it doesn't follow formula. It does kind of make its own thing because it's not an introduction film.
Pots?
Yeah. It always comes back. I think Winter Soldier is up there as one of my favorite MCU movies, just bar none. Because and honestly, because it's so much not a superhero movie. Because who do you have in it? You have Steve Rogers, who is just he can lift stuff, I guess. You've got
Hell yeah.
Black Widow, who can do some sweet twirls, and you've got
Yeah, yeah.
Falcon, who just has some mechanical wings. It is an action movie, and it is a fantastic action movie. It's a fantastic espionage spy movie. It's just so good. Ant-Man has so many redeeming like little moments that make it just such a good movie. But Winter Soldier is just so. Talking about Thor being like the redemption for the Thor like saga, Captain America got it in its second movie, and Winter Soldier is just, oh, it's so good. I don't have much else to say about it.
Alvin.
Winter Soldier for me. The biggest thing, I love Ant-Man. Like I really loved Ant-Man, but Winter Soldier is the winner for me. And like the biggest thing is like, Winter Soldier introduced so many things, like especially like with the action scenes. Like a lot of them are really brutal, and I mean like raw as raw can get, right? And after, like, if you think about it, after Winter Soldier, the other MCU movies to follow up also went brutal with their action, like really raw, and not just, oh, here's a little pansy punch in the face or whatever and whatnot. Like it is as raw can get. It feels like you're watching like an MMA boxing match or whatever. And
Yeah.
also like what
The
Pontus
choreography of the fight scenes was really.
I was
really
just
good.
about to
Oh my
bring up
gosh.
at the beginning when they're infiltrating the boat.
Yes,
And he
exactly.
Iron Man fights George St. Pierre. Like they brought an MMA guy to fight
Yeah.
in the movie, and like that was sick. And they like used his MMA experience to like choreograph the fight. Like I like the Winter Soldier because it's one of the few MCU movies that we can go to, and it's like, all right, this really isn't like a superhero movie. This is like the hand-to-hand combat. It's much more hand-to-hand combat, not really people like Iron Man like fucking lasering somebody out of the sky or something. It's really, I feel like it's really more down to earth. It's more gritty, and I like that about that. I think it's a mood change that the MCU needed. It was perfectly timed. I think the choreography's great. I think Scarlett Johansson's great in the movie. I think I think the whole cast is great, and it's one of my favorites in the MCU. And again, going back to the two roads, I think it did its path better than Ant-Man did that path. And
Yeah,
Totally. Because
and
it's like Thor Ragnarok is the best of the Ant-Man path, right?
yeah, and I mean it's hard to justify an Ant-Man vote for me because look at the Russo brother movies in the MCU, and like Peyton Reed, like he's done some good movies, like he's done like he's known for like kind of the comedy-esque movies, a great example is Yes Man. He did what was that movie with Vince Vaughn and Jennifer Aniston?
The Breakup?
Yes, The Breakup. He did that movie. He's known for these like movies that roll off of comedy, and it's a great movie. I love Ant-Man, but I just don't. Green Skull, it was not Passion of the Christ, but thank you for that in the chat there.
My favorite rom-com.
Yeah, my favorite rom-com. But yeah, it's easily
Never guess
the
how it
Winter
ends.
Soldier for me, and I'm gonna give Winter Soldier the 4-0 win unless anybody really wants to cast their vote for Ant-Man.
Nah, I'm good.
All right,
Yeah, I
cool.
think we're in agreement. There's just two more things that I want to hit on.
Yeah,
one is that recently, back on like pretty high up on Reddit, is talking about the choreography, the slow-mo gift of
Oh yes, I
Sebastian
saw that
Stan
too.
flipping that knife. Oh my goodness.
In real life,
It's so
like
good.
it's not CGI. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
it's
there's
fantastic.
like clips of that, them practicing that knife flip like over and over again. It's like that's really cool.
It's fantastic. And then the only other thing was the biggest knock I have against this movie, which is Winter Soldier, by far in the MCU, worst Scarlett Johansson haircut. Bar none.
Oh,
that
going for the
flat,
hair.
Just greasy. It just doesn't look good.
Damn.
It just
That is
doesn't look
true.
good, Scary.
Pot's
Man.
taking a shot at the hair.
Bitch boy. over
Taking a
here.
shot at the hair.
God damn. Can we
Yeah,
do a
definitely
new
not worse.
chart?
It's definitely not worse than Infinity War, but it's pretty bad at some points.
Yeah, the next
Just gotta
I
do his
said that we
hair.
were gonna discuss the next ranking stream after this. Green Skull just ruined it in the chat. It's a ScarJo hair ranking,
Yeah.
and it's not just MCU.
Oh, man.
It's through all
That's a
of her
tough one.
movies. So all right, so yeah, let's
It's
move
really
on.
good in Iron Man 2. Maybe Iron Man 2 should have moved on.
Yeah, it was awful in Thor Ragnarok. It was almost like it wasn't existent.
MCU world building,
It wasn't there.
character development, plot, and ScarJo hair. These are the four
Yeah.
different the facets that we judge these films. in.
Passion of the Christ. Yeah, she was in Passion of the Christ.
All right, so
Okay.
let's move on to round 7. This one's gonna be a doozy. I'm ready to fight for this one. It's
I
number
bet you are.
7 ranked The Avengers versus the 10th seed Black Panther. Somebody else but me
Excited
start
because
this off.
Me and Wardog are gonna fight about this one, but I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
want to
yeah.
start it off either.
Listen, I'm a white boy, and I to be clear, all right, I completely recognize the cultural impact of Black Panther, but I just feel like it's not that fantastic of a movie, especially not against the Avengers.
Amen.
Oh my gosh. It just and honestly, some of the best like character motivation in that entire movie. Probably one of the best villains in the MCU period. I just think that Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa just isn't that overly interesting of a character. And by the end, but by that last 30, 45 minutes of that movie, and it goes back to the whole Obadiah thing. Literally fighting the same CGI model recolored. And it's in this PS2 era graphical and intense scene. And it just falls apart for me so much. And I get it. The teams were busy. They had to make Thanos' chin look as real as possible. But oh man, I just think that Avengers as what it is, everybody come together and the cultural impact of it is just it just blows Black Panther out of the water.
All right, anybody else? Alvin.
All right. I'm gonna go based on Potter's quote. You know, I'm a yellow boy. I'm Asian, so I'm gonna go with Avengers. No, but the biggest thing is with for me with the issues with Black. I love Black Panther as well. Like it's really great. But the issue I had with Black Panther is, like Potts mentioned, like the CGI was just horrendous in that movie.
To the
Like,
point of
oh
it
my
ruining
God,
that
did it actually
that
hurt
film
my
for me.
eyes? It was bad. But like, I don't know, like, there like as much as I enjoyed Black Panther, there was not much going for it aside from like Killmonger. Like he was probably one of the best villains ever. Like amazing. But other than that, most of the other stuff is like stuff that you can sort of overlook. I mean, the world building for Wakanda is pretty great. Like it's fantastic, but like, just doesn't have anything on Avengers.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention it, but absolutely, Killmonger is one of the best MCU villains. But I didn't even say it. Loki in Avengers is just definitive, fantastic villain Loki. 100%.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I forgot. Wait, I
Go
should
ahead.
probably add-
Jeff
One thing
Wardog, I'm gonna take your weapons before you begin. By the way, I'm just gonna. We're gonna have a friendly conversation.
But one thing that
You can
bothered
finish
me
it
as well is like they introduced Ulysses Claw in like Age of Ultron. We're like, oh shit, because he is supposed to be like Black Panther's like arch nemesis. They usually have a lot of battles against each other, but they just killed him off in Black Panther just sort of like then and there, and I'm like, is that it? And Andy Serkis was amazing as Claus too,
He's
especially with
pretty
how
good.
estatic he was, not playing as a CGI character. Like it's fantastic, but god damn it though, like he was there and then just dead, and it's like, okay, like no more.
I couldn't believe when they shot him. I couldn't believe it. It made no sense to me. I was like, you built this whole thing up for him to just die? Like that's it? Like that was my whole thing. Is that I was like, oh man, we're going, and then like I was just like, why? Why would you even do that? Like, there's so many, like, he doesn't have to have any further role in this film, but why did you have to shoot him there? Like, why? Like, maybe he's not dead, but still, it's like, yeah.
I think he's pretty dead.
Yeah,
he
was shot
seemed
square, like, in the
pretty
forehead.
dead.
He's
Yeah.
I think he's pretty DED.
Okay, Wardog, give me your thoughts.
All
Why
right.
is Black Panther better than Avengers, and why are you wrong?
All right. Wow. That's a loaded question. So here's the thing. Like, I'm totally willing to concede the fact that I biasly like Black Panther more because it did something culturally for me. Like, I'm willing to concede the fact that my glasses are very probably rose tinted. Yeah, I'm very willing to concede that. On the other hand, this is like something that is not like of an this is not something that's odd for me to experience. Ryan Coogler, who's the director for Black Panther, is not, man, I don't want to backhand, backhand compliment him, but he's not as of a well-known director, but his last few movies have all been great, and they've all done the same thing where there is some cultural impact to them. Like, Creed was great, Fruitvale Station was great. Black Panther just did something for me that most movies don't. And again, it's I'm very willing to concede that it's a opinion that comes from me viewing it through my background and how I was raised, and the things that it does for people that come from situations like mine, and I have no problem conceding the battle of Avengers versus Black Panther to Avengers just because it is a staple movie of the MCU. The Avengers is so important. It does establish Loki as a great villain. While I do think Michael B. Jordan's story really hits home, and that he is, without a doubt, no one will ever change my mind that he is one of, if not the best villain in the MCU.
Yeah, he's really, really good.
It's really interesting because I talk about the Black Panther movie with a lot of people, and a lot of people are like, listen, man, Chadwick Boseman, he really took that movie. I was like, dude, did you watch the movie? Like, Michael B. Jordan.
Exactly.
Michael B. Jordan, man, a character that I really felt for, man, and a guy I saw where he was coming from, and a villain that actually takes over in a movie, like he actually took Wakanda, and that all that stuff really hit me hard. I'm gonna submit my vote for Black Panther, but I'm not salty about conceding it just because the battle is lost to a really great movie.
Yeah.
All right, Wardog. Here are all the ways in which you are wrong.
Oh boy! All right, no, we already have the votes in. Do we
Why?
have to continue
I'm
this?
conceding, Jeff.
Okay.
No, it's okay. I'm just joking.
Okay, so we're gonna go 3-1 for Avengers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it.
We
Man,
know
I'm
who
glad
the
that's out of
one
the
is.
way. Looking at the bracket, that was the one that I was gonna be like, oh boy. Honestly, because I don't think I just didn't see Iron Man Guardians. I think.
And a little bit of not a movie spoiler, but a spoiler alert for what we'll talk about later. Those two movies are right next to each other on my personal list, and those are two movies that I had a hard time putting one over the other. So those are right next to each other on my list, but Black Panther is above Avengers.
They're not close together at all for me. Black Panther was a myth. The only thing good about it was the
You're
villain.
just a bitch. Why'd I invite you on here? All right, round 8.
Listen, man.
Round
If
8.
if that movie
Round
had
8!
actually known what it was doing.
Round 8.
What if the president was also a Navy SEAL? Like, does that
Jeff,
make
why are you
any
such a-
sense?
Jeff, listen.
What?
Why would
Listen,
why would you
Jeff.
have to
In
fight
the
on a
listen,
waterfall?
Jeff. In
Why
the
would
zoo.
you have to fight on a
Listen,
waterfall?
in
so
the
we
zoo-
can set the
Listen,
legacy
Jeff.
and-
That was
The
a cool
Shaka
waterfall.
Zulu was the best warrior of his tribe, and he was also the leader. Okay. There are many examples of this that I just don't know offhand, but the Shaka Zulu one is right there.
Listen,
Round 8. All right,
What is
the
going on
six,
now?
the six,
all right.
six
Obviously,
seed,
Doctor Strange wins.
the 6 seed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 versus the number 11 seed Doctor Strange.
I actually think both of these are very middling movies, but I think Doctor Strange does it a
Same.
little bit more for me. Just Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I wish that movie was just about Yando, and the only parts of that movie that I really liked were the Yando parts. Not so much.
The Yando parts. His name is Yondu, by the way. Not
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
it's,
whatever.
it's
Yeah,
definitely Yondu, yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yando.
Potato, Yandu, whatever you want.
Yandu, yeah, I get it, I
Nope,
get it.
definitely.
But like, no, like
Still definitely Yondu, but go ahead.
it was like I love the story of his parentage and like how that works, but like it didn't give it was all the ego side of it, and like I didn't really like Michael Douglas's performance of ego, and I just didn't really like it. It felt kind of obvious to me, and I didn't care about him. Whereas again, Yondu was a character that like I had known before from the previous movie, and I really wanted to see more of, especially when they were teasing Stallone and them with the rest of the Ravagers there, but like it never got into that shit, and that's what I wanted. And like Ego was a new character, and you had to show up, and like even the whole pull where like that was the thing, is that to me it felt very obvious. I was like, oh yeah, but this guy's like a crazy world thing, and so obviously like he's probably the one that killed his mom, and so then that's what it turned out. So it just didn't really surprise me that much. Whereas Doctor Strange, like that movie is bumpy. Like it starts off and you're like, oh, so this character is like a complete asshole. Like, why do I like this dude? Oh, he crashed his Ferrari while driving 100 million miles an hour while on the phone at night in the rain. Yeah, good. He deserves to fucking crash. And so it starts out like really, really bumpy, where you're just like, this movie is a character that you do not like. But then, oh yeah, it was the Lambo. Sorry. But
That
it's
changes
a
things
character that
completely.
like you actively don't like, and then they really have to like wind all that back and make you like him. And at the end of it, I think that like to me, I really did enjoy the endings of Doctor Strange, and I really did get behind that character. And while I think the start of it is like super awkward, and it's hard to explain exactly, but I think it is just the fact that he's like an unlikable asshole, and so it's like, why would you care about him? And it's hard to engage for the first 30 to 45 minutes because you're just like, this dude is still such a fucking prick. Why do I care what happens to him? But I think that it when it does finally get you, it really gets you. Whereas I felt like the end of Guardians of the Galaxy, it was supposed to be this big thing with ego was what's supposed to get you, but the Yandu stuff is what got me, and I felt like that just it wasn't the focus, and it didn't have the focus that I wanted, and so that's what ultimately I think Doctor Strange wins out for me over Volume 2 of Guardians of the Galaxy.
All right, and I'll be real.
Doctor Strange also just one more thing I'm going to throw in here, because we're talking about world building in MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 has literally nothing to do with the MCU.
Dude,
whereas
you took what I was
Doctor
going to open
Strange
up with.
features the Infinity Stone, the Time Stones, introducing the monks in the Order. All of that is like huge in the Infinity War timeline. Extremely, extremely important.
All right,
And the multiverse, like getting into all the dimensions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the multiverse and everything around that. Like, yeah, once we get into the whole Earth 616 and like all of that shit, it's
All right, I'm going
Yeah.
to be really quick because you said a lot of what I was going to say, but I only have a couple things to add on. One, I think Doctor Strange is one of the best visual movies in the MCU. The special effects are great. The scene where they're fighting in the city and they're like running on the sides of buildings and the city is folding in on itself and they're like using portals to like shoot shit at each other, like that. I love that.
It's like the ultimate version of what Inception did, right? That's what
Exactly.
I always thought of the mirror universe as.
There's that, and then just the Doctor Strange ending was really cool for me because these were like polar opposite endings, right? Like the ending of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was the Guardians versus a really big villain, and big explosion ends the whole thing. Whereas the ending of Doctor Strange is like him. it's not like an action ending. He's literally outsmarting the villain. He's outsmarting Dormammu at the end. You know, what an ingenious way to beat a villain by having him trapped in a time loop. And like they were going, and they set it up all the way from the beginning. If you watch the movie again, they set it up all the way from the beginning about how when they're explaining who Dormammu is, about how he really doesn't exist in a realm where time is really a factor, and like, you know, he doesn't have a concept of time, so he uses the time stone to trap him in this time loop, and he's willing to die over and over and over and over again just to keep him in this time loop. So where, you know, Dormammu starts, you know, realizing how much time actually affects him and basically concedes to him based on not because, you know, Doctor Strange hits him really hard, but because he outwits him. And that was really cool to me. Whereas Guardians of the Galaxy was a very like status quo, you know, blow the villain up kind of thing, and, you know, ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, I definitely feel like neither of these movies are, I think, big star children of the MCU at all. I honestly think that more so Guardians 2 is just not a great movie in itself. I think just so much of the comedy in it, it's supposed to be a comedy movie. I just feel like so much of it consistently falls flat, in my opinion. I think Ego was
skews younger almost. The comedy in it feels a little juvenile to me, whereas the original felt a little bit more edgy. It felt a little cutesy, and that's where like I always like I did a lot more just like that smile, or like where you just blow air out of your nose because something is sort of funny but like not enough for you to actually laugh.
Well, I'm even talking about like there's a lot of times that I just rolled my eyes and it was like that was a waste of time. I didn't need to hear that line at all. Like that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of that came from, and I'll get into a little bit more of that when we get back to Thor Ragnarok. But I think Ego was a decent villain. I think just like Black Panther, a lot of that fell apart. Like there's a stretch in Guardians 2 that I think is fantastic. I forgot what the beginning part is, but it ends as soon as he turns into David Hasselhoff. And I'm just like, why? Why have you done this? Why have you just completely turned this around? Then it turns into a giant CG fight of a giant rock man fighting Pac-Man. It's just ridiculous and stupid and just not nearly as charming as the first one. And I think just with everything that Doctor Strange does, I think Doctor Strange has probably one of, not talking about Dormammu, but one of the weakest villains in the MCU too, with Mads.
Mads' performance was great. I thought I didn't understand his motivations at all. Like he definitely he had no motivation whatsoever. It was just like he's the bad guy. I totally agree. But like I thought I love Mads Mikkelsen. I think he's a great performer, and so I thought he did a good job.
Sure, he did the best with what he was given, 100%.
Yeah.
But just what Doctor Strange,
that exchange between Mads Mikkelsen and Benedict Cumberbatch, the like Mr. Doctor, you know, it's strange. Maybe you know, like that moment is still one of my favorites from Doctor Strange. Like they're play off each other in a couple of scenes that they had where they weren't like fighting and stuff. Like when Strange has him tied up in the thing, I thought they had really good chemistry, even though he wasn't kind of the ultimate villain.
Mm-hmm. And I think on the topic of performances, I think Tilda Swinton did pretty well with what she was given too. I don't think that her Ancient One was a super compelling character, but it was decent for what it was. And then obviously with that final fight with Dormammu, just how off guard it catches you after. Well, I mean, this is like around the 12th movie in the MCU, and that final fight is supposed to be this big like, oh, throwing magic back and forth and everything. It's just so smart, and you see that like. And honestly, I thought of Doctor Strange through the entire movie as an asshole pretty much until that moment, because he's talking about at the beginning of the movie like, no, I don't have time to work ER. I don't care about these people. There's other things that I could be doing. And by the end of the movie, he's like, oh yeah, I'll suffer forever, whatever. As long as I'm in here, you're trapped and they're safe. And I just think that coupled with the fantastic use of visual effects in that movie is just a better movie than, at least above Guardians 2.
Papa Tran, final thoughts.
So I'm going to give that to this vote to Doctor Strange. Volume 2 did not do it for me. Like it just there were so many scenes that like they were just boring for me, and like I felt like with like most of the jokes they tried to rely on were like dick jokes, and I'm like okay, yeah, because we giggle like dick jokes, but like you can't just use it forever. But long and behold,
Juvenile,
they
right?
kept on
It
using
was like
it.
juvenile.
Exactly, yeah. It was like, oh look, penis. It's like, and like what? Like why? And like again, like with most people are saying with Doctor Strange, like the visual effects are fantastic. Like oh my god, especially like I don't remember much strangely with Doctor Strange. I get it, but I don't remember much with Doctor Strange. But I do remember when I was watching the movie in 3D, like oh my god, the visual effects like really pop out. But
Yeah,
no,
that was
I
an
just-
IMAX movie.
Yeah, I just find Doctor Strange to be better than Volume 2.
Yeah. There's one last thing that I wanted to touch on before I totally forget about it is so Ego's whole thing was he planted all these like little things across the galaxy on tons of populated planet. And it goes off. It starts happening. It consumes a portion of a small town in wherever Peter lived. But there's just no consequences for it.
Yeah, that
You
Dairy
never
Queen.
hear anything about it at all. That poor Dairy Queen.
No, you know who
is
cleaned
going
it up?
to
The Vulture's crew cleaned it up after Spider-Man: Homecoming. Man, they went and cleaned up all that.
But what about there's just so many other planets, and it just seems like such a big deal that I feel like people would have talked about a little bit. It's
I agree. Yeah, it was something that was just kind of like, well, yeah, one of those things that was written up because they really showed how far-reaching it was and how big it was getting before they stopped it, and it was just like, yeah, it was just kind of gone. But they definitely showed in the film that it was still like hanging around, even though it had stopped like growing, right?
yeah. I didn't. They didn't really show the cleanup.
They never show the cleanup.
All right, so Doctor Strange moving forward with a 4-0 victory.
All right, what's our next round? Oh,
Next
Infinity
round.
War?
So is
I think
round
this
number
one's gonna be
9.
another easy one.
Yeah,
boys.
I'm thinking we can go through this one we're going a lot longer than I thought we were going to go. So I'm thinking we could go through this one really
Absolutely.
quickly and not use any spoilers for Infinity War just yet.
Yeah, Infinity War wins.
Yeah.
It takes my vote.
So so it's Avengers Infinity War from the Russo brothers versus Iron Man 3 from Shane Black. This one is not a Jon Favreau film.
Yeah, ironically, Iron Man is the one series in the MCU that gets worse as time goes on, whereas I think almost
Agreed.
all the other ones improve.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You're
100%.
Totally right.
Uh,
Well, from Avengers to Avengers Age of Ultron, maybe there's like a little gray area in there, but everything else, yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a dip, but for the most part, yeah.
I just think that Infinity War does just about everything better. It does a villain better. The camaraderie that we see in Avengers Infinity War is better than any character interaction we see at all in Iron Man 3. I just think there's no part where Infinity War falls to Iron Man. I just think it's overall in every
Let's call it. Let's just call it and move on. I want to talk about Captain.
Cool.
Oh, actually, the next
I'm
one's
down.
pretty easy too. I think as well, to be honest, guys.
number 10, Homecoming.
Oh, yeah.
Number
It
2, Spider-Man:
absolutely-
Homecoming versus
easily
number
destroys
15.
First Avenger. It just destroys it.
Yep.
Like I want to talk about Homecoming as compared to Avengers more than I want to talk about Homecoming compared to First Avenger.
I agree.
Completely
I
agree.
think John Watt did a great job with Spider-Man. We'll talk about it a little more in detail in the next round. I just think, Johnston didn't captivate me with the first Avenger. I was kind of bored through some of the movie, and the first Avenger doesn't really scratch that itch that Homecoming scratches for me.
The chat's wrong.
Chat
on
is
this
blowing
one.
me away, but I don't know what's happening in there. What's
Yeah.
going on? You're all
You
blind.
didn't like Homecoming? Wow.
Oh, my chat froze. I'm gonna have to refresh that.
You don't want to see what's in
The
chat
chat's
right
the chat's kind of wild.
There we go.
For everybody
Wild
watching
card
on
everything.
YouTube, there some people
Wild
are
card.
saying that they would vote Cap here. You guys are all wild. Good thing we're taking the hot 4-0 on this one.
Yeah, I'm glad that we don't have to go to the chat on this one.
Yeah.
The chat
You know what they say in the world of the UFC, Jeff? Never leave it in the hands of the judges.
doesn't. Man.
So
All
that's
right,
round
so next
10.
up-
Round 11, Captain America: Civil War, the number 3 seed versus the number 14 seed Avengers
Another
Age
easy
of
one for me.
Ultron.
I'm-
Another easy one,
Yeah.
I think.
Civil War is a better Avengers movie than Avengers 2.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100%. Because and Civil War isn't like it's in my opinion, Civil War is not that great of a movie. Like I think that Winter Soldier is a better movie overall than Civil War is, because Civil War it's good and that ending fight is awesome, but like it really was a movie that was mostly just around to set up that ending fight more than anything else, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Okay, well then, Papa Tran, are you here to argue anything for Avengers over? Okay, cool.
Civil War.
So we'll take a 4-0 there. That was 11-12. Okay,
Feels
so
good blowing through some rounds after.
yeah. I want you guys to know that we're already an hour and a half in. We're an hour and a half in.
I don't know how we're gonna do this one.
Yeah, so this one's gonna be real hard. Round number 12. The fourth seed Thor Ragnarok versus the 5th seed Captain America Winter Soldier. Now, don't let the fact that we are an hour and a half in stop us, because these are the important rounds.
Dude, I think it's so tough because Thor Ragnarok, if we're talking
the two
about
paths,
action or action comedy, these are two of the best, two of the hands down best. I think that Homecoming, it comes close to me for Ragnarok in terms of comedy. Homecoming has some good, really funny moments that really, really kill it. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about Ragnarok versus Winter Soldier. And I don't even know how to lay it down, because Winter Soldier, I think that it definitely has better overall action scenes, but Ragnarok has some really fun, some of the battles in the arena and stuff, maybe not overall, but those set pieces are really, really cool. And it has that classic, you love seeing that Thor Hulk fight. It's just Winter Soldier doesn't, I think Bucky versus Steve is just it's not the same. You know what I mean? It's Bucky is not at the same level as Thor, Hulk, and Cap. And so seeing that Thor Hulk fight was just so fucking good. It's I can't even, I'm just talking because I'm not making a call right now.
I'm just gonna put it in there. Any movie that uses immigrant song in the movie is automatically just fucking amazing. When Led Zeppelin, and they use it multiple times in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Just Led Zeppelin fucking kicks in out of nowhere, and some badassery is about to go down. That when that song came on every time in that movie, I was like, all right, it's about to go down. And it didn't disappoint any time. I also think the Gladiator Hulk scene, the Hulk versus Thor fight in the Gladiator arena, is one of the greatest action sequences in the Avengers.
So good,
when
right?
when Thor takes the hammer and smacks the shit out of the Hulk, and he hits the wall and goes around the circular arena riding the wall. It's so good. But then
that was so good. Sorry, go ahead.
So, but then again, Captain America does a great thing with Winter Soldier, where it is a very down-to-earth, grounded movie with great action sequences, but they're great in different reasons. Thor Ragnarok has great action because they're grand, and because the God of Thunder versus Hulk. But, Captain America has great choreography, and it's very intricate, and, Black Widow does has some great moves in that movie, and the whole, espionage aspect of Winter Soldier always draws me back into that movie. I really think that Winter Soldier is, for sure, one of the top 5 movies in the MCU, but it's hard because Thor Ragnarok is definitely one of the top 5 movies in the MCU for me, and it's a hard one. This is definitely a hard one.
Yeah. Coming into this round, I was completely prepared to make a case for Winter Soldier, but I think because we didn't discuss Ragnarok very much because it was against Iron Man 2, and the more I think about Ragnarok, I have my issues with Ragnarok.
Dude.
Jeff Goldblum
that's
is so
exactly
good.
what made me it start clicking in my head. Jeff Goldblum is just a treasure.
Dude,
He's
every
just
scene he's
a
in
lovely.
is it? Oh God, it's so fucking funny.
It's
He's
fantastic.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to make a shout out that Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, is also the hilarious character that is Korg
Yep.
in the movie.
Yeah.
He's the director and he has one of the funniest characters in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I think
Oh,
it's
Meek's
so much
dead.
the
I stepped
delivery
on
of
the
those
bridge.
lines, right? Sorry, Potts, what were you gonna say?
oh dude, yeah.
Oh, I was just
please reference
quoting
that
him.
scene. Do it.
Yeah. But yeah, I Winter Soldier is fantastic, and it is one of my favorite MCU movies ever. And honestly, in Ragnarok, I think my biggest issue with it is Hela. I think that her motivations are clear, and I don't think she's a bad character. But in an action comedy movie, I don't think there was a single line of her comedy that worked for me at all. Every single time she tried to crack a joke just made me less terrified of this goddess of death. It just made me care about her less and less.
Yeah, and I think that's
He was the weakest part of the film, I think.
yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
testament more to obviously the writing, but more of Taika Waititi really knew how to play the funny side of Chris Hemsworth, because Chris Hemsworth is a funny dude. So like in order, like he knew how to set him up for success in like the comedy parts of the movie, whereas Kate Blanchett, like I don't really think of her as like a hilarious actor, you know? Like I would certainly think of, like when I think comedies, I would certainly think of Hemsworth before Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
And you know, and not to mention that Ragnarok has like really great cameos. Like Hemsworth's brother plays in that play in the beginning of the movie. Like Hemsworth's brother is Thor in the play.
And Matt Damon is Loki.
And Matt Damon is Loki.
Yeah.
Also, wait,
Like-
Sam Neill's Odin. Sam Neill's Odin.
Yeah, and Sam Neill is Odin. Like that's so funny. And like it's, oh man, like I love Ragnarok. And the
It's
more I talk about it, the more I actually like want to watch it again. Whereas Winter Soldier, I think, is at a little bit of it at a disadvantage for me, just because I have seen it so much. And
That's
like
my problem too. Is I actually really like, after this conversation, I really want to watch Ragnarok again. Whereas like,
Oh, I know, right?
I'm remembering Winter Soldier, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good fucking action movie. Just like I remember like Mission Impossible and like that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, I actually really want to watch, because I'm just like, dude, that fight and like, yeah, Ragnarok is definitely more of a rewatchable movie, I think, than Winter Soldier, if we're talking about that category.
Yeah.
man,
I'm gonna vote for Ragnarok.
I-
I'm voting for Ragnarok.
I
You're
think
right.
I'm ready to
Yeah.
submit a vote for
'Cause, like,
Ragnarok as well.
Also, I think Ragnarok edges out in terms of world building too, because Ragnarok set up Infinity War. You did not have to watch Black Panther, but you had to watch Ragnarok to know what was going on in order to get Infinity War in. And I think
Literally
Winter
like
Soldier
10
had
minutes
some
between
important-
those movies.
Yeah, exactly. And so like that, in terms of like world building in MCU, I think Ragnarok wins too. It just keeps checking boxes. I have to vote for Ragnarok. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah, I also like the scene call out in the chat there from Monkey Boy. He says, "I've been falling for 30 minutes."
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
was so good. Oh man. The
So
one
Didn't
thing
even
I
mention
will
get help.
the one thing I will say, Get Help. Yeah, that's a hilarious one. I'm not doing Get Help. We're doing Get Help. It's like they walk out of the elevator doing it. But I think if I do have to lay like a negative on Thor Ragnarok, it's definitely the character of Hela. Like I just don't like how it's. I don't like how she was introduced. I don't like I felt like every time she was on screen, I was watching the lowest points of the movie, and that's not to like say that she like that the movie was bad every time she was on screen, but I thought that she didn't help the movie reach its full potential. Like I didn't like the fact that they go talk to Odin and Odin's just like, "Hey, you have a sister, she's pissed and she's coming, see you later," and then he's gone, and then literally 30 seconds later she's just there, she catches Mjolnir, she destroys Mjolnir. Like it's just like all out of nowhere.
Very fast. Yeah.
I was like, where did she come from? Who is she?
Oh, absolutely. Like she's definitely the weakest part of that movie because the problem is that that movie, normally it's like, you're going to have man versus nature or society or whatever. And like that's the thing is that that's what that movie really shines is like them versus this crazy world that they're on. The what's the planet called? I can't remember.
Which one?
In Ragnarok.
Oh man, I
Asgard?
should know this. It's like one of the main
No.
areas in a Marvel superheroes.
Not Asgard,
Oh,
the planet
geez.
that Jeff Goldblum's on, where all the fighting's going on. You know what I'm talking about.
Sakara or whatever.
Sakara, yeah.
Sakaar.
Exactly.
Sakar. Yeah.
Sakara, it's like that's totally like that movie shine. Ragnarok shines when it's Thor and like Hulk versus Sakar, the crazy society, like man versus nature or the world or the society. You know what I mean? And that's the problem.
The world
is that
built around the
Hela comes
devil's
in
anus.
as an actual. Sorry, what'd you say, Pons?
I was just saying it just tells so much about what Sakaar is when you think about it as this giant society built around something called the devil's anus.
Exactly, right? Like, and it's crazy, and like that's what makes it like, and that's a really good story, and then you stick with that, but then you also add in an actual antagonist, and all of a sudden you're kind of splitting things off. And so I agree, where that's where the one place where Ragnarok falls apart, but it's just like it isn't the main focus, and like I think that's the thing that really makes it so good is that like it is sort of the B plot to the A Sakaar storyline, and that's why I think it in the end really works. Because even though America Winter Soldier, the Bucky Steve Rogers battle is so much better because obviously we know Thor, but we don't know Illa at all. But on the Steve Rogers side, obviously, unless you're Green Skull, we know who the fuck Bucky is, and that fight is really really heart wrenching. But I still think that overall I still got to go with Ragnarok.
Worth mentioning, because that discussion's been in the chat. Like, I completely understand who Bucky is. I understand their relationship, and I just think that he's a pretty boring character that I just don't.
Yeah,
feel
I also think
for.
Bucky is pretty boring.
He's pretty monotone.
I don't think he's a great character, but I definitely understand the weight of like his narrative weight, regardless of the fact that I like him or not. Like I know that Steve likes him, so that's where I'm like, through the prism of Steve, I understand that. But like, as a moviegoer, I'm kind of like, who the fuck cares about you? Like, even like, why was he the special scene in Black Panther? The White Wolf, like really? Like, and then, oh, he did so much in Infinity War. Thank God Bucky was there. Everyone, he really did it all in Infinity War. He stopped that Thanos dead. Nope.
No, you're completely missing it. You don't know how important that scene was because guess what? He's the White Wolf, which means, oh, thank God he's not going to be Captain America. Oh, he's the White Wolf.
All right, Papa Tran, any last words before we submit some votes?
This is I would say this is tricky for me, but I'm gonna have to vote with Ragnarok. Like I love again I've said this with so many stuff now. I love Winter Soldier. I think it's a great movie, and I would sort of vote over Ragnarok, but it's just one of those things where if I were to rewatch if I was to rewatch one of these two movies, it would be Ragnarok because I can laugh at pretty much most of the scenes. I can get a kick out of it, unlike Winter Soldier where it's awesome. I'm on the edge of my seat, but after a while, that can easily burn out. Now, the same argument can be said about Ragnarok, but there's just something about the fun factor that just more greater in Ragnarok, and also like everyone's been mentioning, like Bucky's just like he's there, like from Captain's perspective, like there's a big, like there's a big altitude of like who Bucky is, but like for any moviegoer, it's just he's a really monotone person. Just sits there and shoots people like what? So
his arm.
Also he has a metal arm.
With that being said, does anyone object to Thor Ragnarok advancing over Captain America?
It's 4-0, right?
Winter Soldier. All right,
get that flat hair out of this bracket.
God damn, going for the hair again.
Especially with Scar Show.
All right, round 13. Avengers Infinity War versus the original Iron Man.
I still gotta give this one to Iron Man. Like,
wow,
Okay,
we're going to war. What the? We're going to war.
Infinity War is a good movie, but it's not better than Iron Man. No way.
I have a hard time imagining Iron Man as a better movie than Infinity War.
I don't know, man. Like Infinity War had a lot going on. There's a lot of characters and there's a lot of things. There's like it's a good movie. Don't get me wrong, but like it's not nearly like Infinity War. Okay, so get the spoilers thing up there.
All right, yeah, let's
Because we
throw.
gotta
Flash
get-
it.
So for
gotta-
anybody,
Start
so
flashing it.
anybody watching live or on YouTube, I'm now going to activate the spoiler sign. While the sign is up, we will be discussing Infinity War details. If you do not want to hear them, I encourage you to either fast forward if you are on YouTube, or you can just mute the stream and wait for the spoiler sign to go down. So we are going to enter the spoiler zone in 3,
Wardog,
2, 1.
Wardog, being the great content creator that he is, will put a timestamp to where the spoilers subside. I imagine
Oh yeah,
somewhere,
of course.
so people can skip.
Yes.
Yeah,
on
I
YouTube.
definitely thought of that before. Yeah, I know.
Oh, I know,
Thanks,
because you're a
Boss.
fantastic content
Yeah,
creator.
I know. So go ahead, Minolta.
Anyway, as I was saying, so obviously with Infinity War, like if we're talking about world building, for sure, I think both of these have huge consequences inside the MCU. I think it's very hard to compare like MCU impact with Iron Man being, again, the cornerstone, the Jesus, whatever. If that's who that is, then maybe Infinity War to a certain extent is God, or maybe it's the Holy Spirit. I don't know. But either way, I think both of them, I would say, are relatively equal in terms of world building in the MCU and stuff, in that they are beginnings and endings. So they both essentially need to be there. The middle is you can cut out parts in certain chunks of the middle, but you kind of need to start somewhere and you kind of need to end somewhere. And so I think in terms of world building, they're both very equal. Now, I think that once you've gone out of that, you have to look at them as individual movies. And the chat has already brought this up, but Avengers Infinity War does not work as a standalone film. There's just way too much going on. There's way too many characters that you would have no idea what's going to happen. Avengers Infinity War functions incredibly well as a culmination of an amazing experiment that I've loved to be a part of. But as a standalone film, it doesn't really work. You would need way too much backstory to understand what is actually going on. And there's far too many characters to introduce and explain them all to you. It's not just a movie. It's not one thing. It's part of a larger whole. It's like one really good episode of a TV series. It's great, and I love it, but if you didn't have the whole series behind it, it wouldn't make any fucking sense. Iron Man, on the other hand, is a standalone film that, again, I think from a very structural perspective, is beautifully written, perfect symmetry, incredible character development. It does everything right, not just from an MCU movie perspective, setting out the formula and doing all of that, but just from a basic, classic film perspective. It's very, very good. And I think that is what pushes it above Infinity War. I think that Infinity War had a huge task in front of it, and it accomplished it well, but it just doesn't work as a movie on its own. And so where that falls apart is I think you have to give Iron Man the vote. That's my piece.
Potts?
Oh man, I just don't think that's fair to Infinity War, because that's not what Infinity War is ever supposed to be.
That's what
It's
I
not
was going to
supposed
say.
to be a standalone. That's not what it's not built to be a standalone.
Well, and then I think that like it's very hard to compare then, because these are very, very different
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah.
My thing is,
I just
go ahead, Potts.
I just think that Infinity War, with the amount of characters in it and the amount of the stories that had to be told, accomplished what I firmly going into Iron Man, I could have been thinking, oh yeah, this is gonna kickstart something cool, this is gonna work. But I honestly, leading up to Infinity War, I was thinking there's no way this is gonna happen. Like there's no way that they can pull this off, and they did. And I think that says something.
My thing is, I think it would be hard pressed to convince me that aside from the standalone movie argument, it would be hard pressed for anybody to convince me that Iron Man has an advantage in any like movie critique category over the Avengers Infinity War besides the standalone movie argument. I think Infinity War, I think Thanos is a better villain. I like I think the interaction that we get between the different combinations of characters is way better and was much more fulfilling to me than the foundation that Iron Man built for Tony Stark's character. I felt like Avengers Infinity War was truly an emotional roller coaster if you truly cared about characters. over Iron Man. I just don't see where Iron Man does anything better than Avengers Infinity War.
So you talk about character, and like I think that that's a really great point, Wardog. I don't think that there's next to any character development whatsoever in Infinity War, specifically because it has to finish up all of this plot-driven stuff. Like it's just a lot of fighting between these characters and Thanos in reality, and I don't think that, like, other than a whole bunch of people dying, I don't think that you can call that character development. And then if you talk about Thanos as a villain, let's talk about all the villains we've talked about, right? Killmonger, his motivations, incredibly clear. We knew exactly what's going on, right? Loki, you could totally tell what he was doing. He's a believable villain because you understand his motivations. I still think that the change that they made to Thanos in the movies makes absolutely no sense. If there is scarcity in the universe and Thanos' motivation is to rid the world of scarcity, instead of snapping your fingers and killing half the people in the universe, snap your fingers and double the resources in the universe. Make the entire universe a paradise where there is no need for any commodity whatsoever. So like power, water, electricity, food, all of that stuff is so plentiful that it has absolutely no value whatsoever. And so then the universe can just keep going on and being a great place. Like, that's what you do if you're like a god and you can do literally anything you want. But it doesn't make sense to me that, like, he would have all this power and just kill everyone. It doesn't, there's so many other solutions to that. And so I don't think that Thanos stands up as a great villain when compared to someone like Loki or Killmonger, because I don't think that his motivations are very.
All right, but we're comparing him to Obadiah. We're comparing him to Obadiah.
Okay, and so then let's talk about Obadiah. So, like, as a function of story, right? So the character of Thanos, like, again, like, it doesn't make sense to me, because, like, so if we're talking about the villain in relation, Obadiah, again, from a story perspective, represents everything that Tony has to overcome. From a story perspective or thematic perspective, what does Thanos represent other than galactic threat?
I mean, my thing with Thanos is that, first, to touch on your argument of creating more resources rather than diminish the population, my argument for that was that, so we know that Thanos was on this mission previous to receiving all of the Infinity Stones, which he needed in order to wipe out half the universe's population. So in order to fulfill his mission of making sure that life in the universe continues, he has no Infinity Stones, so he can't increase the amount of resources at that time. So what he does in order to complete his mission is he goes planet to planet with his followers, and he wipes out half that planet, right? So that model that he basically sees those planets that he's already done that to as a proof of concept. Because he talks about how when he wiped out half of Gamora's home planet, how that they were thriving now and that they were a paradise, and that that no child goes to sleep hungry, and that's because he wiped out half of the population. He sees that as a proof of concept. And
okay,
now
that's just ends and means, right? If the end is a paradise, snap your fingers and make a paradise without killing everyone.
But what I'm trying to say is that at the point at what he started his mission, that was not an option. So he had already followed this model of wipe out half the population over and over and over again. Like, he's in the middle of this mission. He's not just starting the mission when he chases the Infinity Stones. Like, he's been doing this. Like, we saw he was doing this when Gamora was a child. So, like, he's been doing this for years already. So he just sees the Gauntlet and the Infinity Stones as an easier way to do what he's already been doing.
Okay, but, like, again, I get that, but, like, again, it's ends and means, right? Absolutely. Like, if you're that guy and you're Thanos and you're riding around the galaxy killing half the people because that's the only way that you, as a physical being who doesn't have godlike powers, would do it. But then you hear about these Infinity Stones and you're like, holy shit, I could have godlike powers. My ends is to rid the universe of scarcity. And, it's a harsh way of doing it, but I know that the way that I have to do it now. But if I get these Infinity Stones, I become a god and I can do anything that I want. And so why then do you logically just say like, oh yeah, I'm going to continue just killing half the population? Like, that's what I don't get about it, is that he's smart enough to go through with this. He's obviously an intelligent being, and he sees what he's doing as the ends justify the means. He is Machiavellian to the clearest extent, right? But again, if the ends justify the means, there's no reason for you to kill half the population. If you've done all this work to research the Infinity Stones and figure out how you're going to use them, of course you're going to be thinking day and night over and over all of these years about what you would do with the powers of a god to be able to literally do anything. So like, why wouldn't you think like, oh, maybe if I can do anything, I can do anything. And then like the moment that gauntlet goes onto his hands and like he has that like, oh my God, crazy moment, he has everything. The Mind Stone, he's connected to everyone in the universe. He has the power. He is a god in that moment. And so even then, I don't understand why he wouldn't just say like, oh, I'm going to like just make a parrot, because he would be able to calculate in that instant exactly how to do it. So it would be a perfect world. And if that was truly his motivation, if Thanos truly wanted to create a perfect paradise universe where no one suffered until the end of time, he would be able to calculate how to do that in a millisecond, the moment the gauntlet slips onto his hand. And so I don't see that as clear motivation, because he does not do that. That does not happen. And so to me, there's a clear disconnect. Whereas Obadiah, his motivations are very clear. Goes right through. Totally makes sense.
I just think that like Thanos has that monologue. I forget kind of where in the movie it is, but he talks about how the universe is finite and stuff. So like you have to think that what's the word I'm looking for? Like population growth in the universe is exponential, right? Like it goes
He's
because
got the time stone though. It doesn't matter. He can see all the way into the future and every possible future.
So so what if he
maybe the possible futures he sees?
Yeah, what if the possible
maybe the futures that he sees says that, oh, I have to do this. This is the only way to
what if
make this work.
if the universe is so finite, then he will see that sometime in the he speaks in the movie to how it's finite, and that's why he's doing what he's doing. To Gamora in the throne room, that's where he talks about it. He's talking about how the universe is finite. So like he's obviously, they obviously have knowledge that like us as humans right now don't know. We believe that the universe is infinite, but he obviously has some other knowledge. So like there's gonna be a point, if that's true and the universe is finite, there's going to become a point at somewhere where population overruns resource, and he could keep creating resource, but the fact is that the universe is finite, so he can't do it forever, and that a purge or a mass genocide or whatever is going to be necessary at some point. So yeah, you can hold off, but he ends up doing the same thing in the end.
Yeah, but like again, if you're like I disagree that like I think that Thanos talks about the universe being finite when he doesn't understand it, because again, if you look to the comics or any of the other information, the universe is not finite, and like literally the Infinity Stones make you a god. And so like again, whether it is with the time stone or whatever, he can make any reality with the reality stone. And he has an unlimited source of power. The Mind Stone and the Soul Stone connect him to every living being across the universe, and the Time Stone allows him to see into any possible future. So he can create whatever reality it is that would be perfect, and then use the Time Stone to see into the future where it would be perfect forever. And he could do this as a god. And like, I agree that he probably wouldn't know that back before he put that gauntlet on. But again, all of that knowledge would instantly be inside of him because of the Mind Stone and the Soul Stone. Like all of that coming together makes him a god. And so he is not limited by anything at all. The finiteness of the universe does not apply to the Infinity Stones because they existed before the universe existed.
So right? What if you're kind of right, and then he puts on the Infinity Stone, and he is confirmed in his idea that the best way to accomplish his goal of peace is to wipe out half the population. What if that's a possibility? Why can't that be a possibility? That in that moment he takes the Mind Stone and puts it in, he is confirmed in his idea that this is the best way to do things.
But the thing is that Wardog, either way, to me, and like this is the thing, is that there's obviously some ambiguity here, right? And there's some issues. Whereas, if we're going to talk about Iron Man, if we're going to talk about movie characters and their motivations, Obadiah Stane is a very clearly divine villain. He acts clearly upon his motivations in every scene, and he acts according to what you would expect in every way. He does not have any wishy-washiness about him. And so while Thanos, I agree, is a way cooler villain, and even like maybe his scene when he kills Gamora is incredibly humanizing for him, and I thought that they did a great job with him, and he is a way cooler villain than Obadiah Stane. I think as a film character or as a classic story antagonist, Obadiah actually makes more sense and is technically a better character, even if he's not as like, again, cool or powerful.
See, I just as a viewer of a movie, I just don't agree, because like I feel like in this matchup, like the Avengers fighting, you know, the Mad Titan Thanos is way cooler to me than Iron Man fighting cheap big Iron Man. You know, like, you know, it's kind of like when you get to the last level of a video game and the final boss is the dark version of yourself. Like, it's like, come on, man, that's kind of like that becomes a cheap way out at some point. And it's
but
been
I feel
done.
like the exact same argument applies to Thanos, because it sucks when you get to the final boss and it's an unwinnable battle against a deity or god who has unlimited power. Because just like Greenskull said in the chat, as soon as you start dealing with a deity as a character, it just becomes insanely complicated, and it's just so tough to figure out motivation and like all of that stuff when they can literally do anything and time travel to anywhere. Like Thanos could stop, like the moment that Infinity Gauntlet goes on his hand, he could, and like that's the thing, is that we're all just talking about the coulds, right? He could just like stop time in an instant and like stroll through the universe forever across the entire galaxy if he wanted to, and figure out all sorts of different ways to remake the universe into a paradise planet. But he doesn't do that, right? Why, right? And that's the thing, is that it's because he's a god, he's opened up to all of these questions. Whereas Obadiah, again, if you look at Iron Man as one film, as a story, again, and if we're comparing these things straight one-to-one, the character of Obadiah has much more clear motivations, and he is just like a more well-rounded, believable character. Whereas like Thanos is cool and awesome, and like the end of Infinity War, but like it's not going to work in a sustainable, like it doesn't function nearly as well as Obadiah does within the narrative of Iron Man.
Potts, get in on this.
So I feel like this is just going to keep going back and forth, and it's not going to reach any resolution. Like, I don't think either one of you is going to end up flipping your opinion on this.
No, I haven't been flipped yet.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think, I agree that I think my biggest issue with Infinity War is his motivation, but at a certain point, I just had to shut off my brain and be like, I'm ruining the movie for myself. He has to be a villain. He has to do something villainous. This is what has to happen for this to be an entertaining movie. Like, just fundamentally. And like, I absolutely,
agree.
by the end of that movie, I was thinking like, why didn't he just give everybody some food? He could have just given everybody some bread.
But
and
Iron Man doesn't
cheese or
leave you
something.
with questions like that, does it, Potts? Iron Man is a complete film. Iron Man functions so well.
I mean, I have a lot of questions about Obadiah. If why he just built a big suit, I just don't think that's like, that's what I'm saying. Is this isn't? I just don't. I think that I just can't see how. Like, I can see like objectively
Infinity War is
how
also basically half a
Obadiah.
film.
I mean, yeah, sure.
It's supposed to be
I'd say
two
it's even
parts.
less than half a film because it's, you know, a film that relies on 19 other films.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly like that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
But I just feel like as an entire film, that Infinity War for what it is like a 2.5, 40-minute film that never had any downtime, constantly kept me entertained. The only questions I really had that really bugged me about it were his, like, Thanos' motivation. But beyond that, I feel like the dialogue and the interaction between all those characters, which is what this movie is. I don't think it's fair to judge it as a standalone whatsoever. But what that movie is the interactions between all the characters we've seen developed over the last 10 years. And I think it fucking nails that. And I think it is fantastic in that regard. And for what that is, I don't think it's a fair fight with Iron Man because I don't think there's any way that that movie as a whole can stand up to it at all.
Alvin, any words?
Oh boy, I'm not gonna go. I won't not be able to go as in depth as everyone else. But it's tricky. But I'm gonna have to go with Infinity War. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I will definitely agree on Jeff with many points. But as of recently, I did watch there was a film theory about Infinity War that came out talking about what Thanos is doing. Was he right? And in this case of the video, he was right in what he was doing. Now I'm not gonna recite everything because I sort of forgot it all. But yeah, no, like especially what Potts mentioned, like with the culmination of like 10 years, like Infinity War just I can't put into words, but like yeah, no, I can't really say anything. I just don't know how to put
It's
it
hard
out.
to judge his motivation because nobody well, debatably, but nobody's really come along with that motivation trying to kill half the universe before.
Yeah, mostly it's just
we don't
like,
have the
oh,
statistics to support either side of it,
Yeah.
really.
It's mostly most of the other like MCU villains have been on like of course on a universal scale, like insurmountable to most of the other MCU characters where it's just I want to rule this business or I just want to flick you on the nose. But like again, I can't. I just feel like Thanos is like again, yeah, why not just do infinite amount of food? I was reading chat while Jeff was going on his rant, but like Chase brought up some good points, but then Dan had like a good counterpoint. Like if you kept the whole population and if you just double the food, the resources will be consumed twice as quickly. So it's just sort of like a half there. Like you kill half the population, then you don't have to worry about wasting too many resources. But why wipe out half the population when you could have just what was I gonna say? Like when you could have just doubled the resources, but then have to worry about the resources going away like even more quickly.
I think it's
on
a
both sides of
problem
it.
without.
you cut the population in half. Eventually, it grows back up, and you have resources.
Yeah.
Scarcity
The whole
again.
point of it is, it's a solution without a. It's a problem without a real solution. Thanos thinks that he has the right solution, and that is what he's pushing toward.
And that's the thing is that, like, while I agree that Obadiah's suit is a little bit hokey or whatever it is, the whole thing is that he just wants to weaponize the Iron Man reactor inside of Stark weapons, and Iron Man does not want that to happen. And like that's why it's such a good battle, because the whole thing is that the whole thing is that like it's the triumph of the underdog and everything, and you don't even get that in Infinity War. you just get everyone getting smacked.
Yeah, the other thing I actually do want to say is that I do love an Infinity War for the fact that the heroes do lose in the movie. I think that really it's something that we haven't seen in the.
Do it. I wasn't sure if they had the balls, because literally I was just like, man, if they Hollywood this up, I was gonna be pissed. And so like that's the thing, is that like it didn't surprise me that everyone died. It surprised me that they pulled the trigger. I was like, cool, like all right, we're actually following this line. Like I was excited by that.
And permanently on some characters, from what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, like honestly, I think they could wipe the whole. But like, and Green Skull brought this up, and like this is the thing, is that I think another thing that like it's weird to judge Infinity War on this, because it's hard, because this is obviously completely outside of the world. But me as a viewer, I couldn't help but think about this, dude. Like, the next Spider-Man movie's already announced. Like, his death scene hurt my heart so bad because I love Spider-Man, but at the same time, I was like, man, like I know he's coming back. You know what I mean? Like,
there's gonna be another Black Panther movie. There's gonna be another Doctor Strange movie.
Like, all of this shit is.
What if they're prequels?
Yeah, I know.
But they literally set up sequels to Spider-Man and Doctor Strange in the after credits.
Listen, man, that's just like real world. That's just
it's
like
a
real
misdirect.
world. Yeah, that's just like real world.
But didn't that
like
take like
No.
the only like it didn't take any of the punch out of it for you guys, like at all?
100% it did. Yeah.
Because that's the thing too for me, is that like in the Iron Man final battle, like I guess you know that Iron Man is going to win, but like I was still rooting for it way more. But when everyone died, it was just one of those things that I was like, well, that can't happen forever. You know what I mean? Like it was like I was like, okay, good, they're going with this, but I was like, okay, so we'll wind back time with the time stone next time around. Let's do it. You know.
I mean, but if you think about it though, it seems like Heimdall is a permanent death. It seems like
Vision?
Loki is a permanent
Oh,
death.
people that died pre-snap.
No,
yes.
Vision is not a permanent death.
You don't think Vision's a permanent
No,
death?
I think
Vision
I
is
think
one
the-
of those ones
I
that's
think
like,
the-
I think it's contentious.
I think once they get the
Loki for sure.
I think
Loki needs
once
to be
they
dead.
get
I'm
the
so done.
Mind
Like, they
Stone
need
back,
to
that they're
stop
going
it.
they're
He
gonna
just pops
recreate
up again.
Vision.
Tricked you.
I think Gamora's permanently dead. Especially because one of my things is I think that she is a sacrifice to the Soul Stone, which is what makes her death different.
Dude, like, and so that's the thing. Are we gonna, like, by the way, like, do we think that now we're talking about the future, but so is Thanos, like, is the final, the end of the next movie, is it gonna be Thanos where Red Skull was? You know what I'm saying?
No, because Red Skull is there because he had nothing to sacrifice to the Soul Stone. So when he failed to obtain the Soul Stone, I think what happened was
I
the
thought you
soul...
were cursed either way, because it's the way Red Skull said it, it seemed like he was like, you were just cursed up.
To be fair, I don't remember his words exactly, so I don't know. Maybe I'll just
The only thing
I'll
that he
pay
had
attention to
that
that
he
next
truly
time.
loved was his normal skin, human-looking face, and he left that on Earth, and now he's trapped there forever.
Yeah, he couldn't throw it down the pit. All right.
I'm just glad that we saw where he was, Green Skull. I agree, it was a little bit of a throwaway, but like, I just glad that they tied that up, because I forever I was like, where the fuck did Red
Yeah,
Skull go?
Exactly.
It was
It's
just
there
like-
to make the nerds happy, you
'Cause I
know. It's,
remember-
it is what
Yeah,
it is.
it was just like a loose thread in the back of my mind that I was just like, there we go. Okay, he's on a mountain somewhere.
It was there. It was there
all
for
I
the
need.
opening night gasp, is what it was.
All right, I'm ready to submit a vote.
All right. I think I'm gonna lose this one.
All right,
I
I'm
think
going
you are
Iron
as
Man,
well.
boys.
Papa Tran, vote.
IW.
Minolta, vote.
Iron Man, baby.
Potts?
I have to look up how her hair was in this. 1 second.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Take your time.
Oh,
Dude,
shit.
ScarJo's hair in Iron Man was awesome. You barely saw it in Infinity War.
Infinity War. It
Wait,
was horrendous.
Was
Oh, it was
Wait.
like the
They
short
even
blonde.
dyed her eyebrows like Thor, so it was twice as bad.
Yeah, you should definitely
wait,
vote for Iron Man. Pots.
guys, ScarJo was not in the original Iron Man.
She was only in 2.
Yeah, she wasn't. She was in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, she was introduced in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, you're right. That's
Yeah, so her hair was fantastic in Iron Man.
Oh, it was so good. That's
I
like,
actually,
Yeah, her hair was great. It
I'm
just
a
wasn't
fan
so-
of the
yeah.
Infinity War ScarJo hair. Not just to like push my point, but like I am.
Listen,
No,
Wardog,
I
you're
agree.
already winning.
I'm
all
I
right?
with
thought
Calm
she was
down.
really hot. I thought she
Get
was
out.
hot.
I like that the short curls. I'm into it. All right, Infinity War.
All right, I'm also Infinity War. Jeff, you're gonna have to hold the L on
Listen,
the 3 to
you
1.
guys- You guys just don't know what a good.
Listen, Jeff, I
like-
took the 3 to 1 L on Black Panther. All right, it's your turn.
Listen, I'll take the L. I'll take the L right now. But I think-
Especially because I want to get to this next one. Round 14 is
still have
the number
So
2.
many of these.
Ooh.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 left. So we have the number 2 seed Spider-Man Homecoming versus the number 7 seed Avengers. Any opening thoughts?
Oh, dude, this one's tough because like these are right next to each other on my list and like very very close to the top and like
that's
okay, straight up, I think both of these films are absolutely equal in terms of quality. The only
Agreed.
thing that pushes Avengers above Spider-Man for me is the MCU world building aspect. Like Spider-Man's a great movie, but it's pretty much like Tony is in it and it does more world building than a lot of MCU intro films. But Avengers is Avengers. It's fucking Avengers. And so I like, especially in terms of just the first one, I love Spider-Man Homecoming. It's an incredible film, but I have to put Avengers just above it because it does do more for building out the MCU in terms of like it really, that was in terms, if Infinity War is that 10-year check, right? I mean, the original Avengers was the 5-year check. That was the like, holy shit, that was the first end or like a culmination moment. And for me, personally, I think it's actually better than Infinity War. So yeah.
I have almost the
Um,
same argument as you, but in the other direction. I think Spider-Man is just the only thing that Spider-Man has that gives it the edge for me is the Vulture. I think the Vulture was a great character.
But Loki.
Listen. I think Loki is great, and I think he's lovable. Now that we've been with him for so long. Oh wait, I can take the spoilers off. I forgot. I think Loki is a great. I'm sorry, guys. You guys just missed Jeff's argument. I'll put a timestamp.
Yeah, rewind like 2 minutes.
But I think Loki is a great villain and everything. But I think the Vulture was a much more relatable character in the movie, just because I felt for the guy, because he wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't a villain because he was a bad guy. Like, he wasn't doing the things he was doing because he was a bad guy. He was doing the things he was doing because it was right for his family. And, like, that little bit of complexity in the villain and that relatability to, you know, he's just a guy trying to help his family out, really spoke to me more than kind of Loki did. Loki kind of just... You know, I don't think Loki is at his peak here, and I don't know. I think Spider-Man did more for me than the Avengers did.
Okay, but like I don't understand, because like I would agree with you if the Vulture wasn't living in a fucking mansion with his beautiful wife and his fancy fucking car. Like, he's gone. Like, in my opinion, my problem with the Vulture, and like, to a certain extent, I guess it's because he is just an insane person, and that is his character. But he's almost become what he's hated. Like, he's taking way more than he needs to get by, and like, he is just like a shitty guy. Whereas I feel like, I don't know, Vulture was a great villain, and I really love Michael Keaton's performance. But Loki, just, I mean, like. You're right. He's at his peak once he's not the core villain. But I thought that his performance as the villain here, especially just like, again, his motivations so clear, because Loki is always just like looking out for himself, and everything to do, like, Avengers is just an incredible film. And I think that it just, not only again is Loki a great villain, but he's building as part of Thanos and the rest of the world, which is what really Spider-Man doesn't do as much. Like, the biggest thing that the Vulture ties into the MCU is the fact that they're using tech from the Avengers movie.
Yeah, I see that. Man, I just think that Spider-Man just hit more notes for me. Like, I like the fact, I think Spider-Man was more enjoyable for me over the course of the movie, because it did have more of a comedy-esque feeling to the movie, and like it had good moments where, like, the Avengers has badass moments, right? Like the hero shot of all of them coming together in New York and stuff. Like, that's badass. But like, I think Spider-Man had more enjoyable moments for me. Like, every moment with Ned in that movie is hilarious. Like when he drops the Death Star, and when he like asks to be the guy in the chair, and when he finally does, and the teacher walks in and she's like, "What are you doing?" and he's just like, watching porn. Yeah, like all those moments are great. The scene in the car when they're going to the prom, and Michael Keaton's just like, "Dude, back the fuck off," and like, you know, he's like letting him know that he knows. Like, those are all great moments for me. The scene where Spider-Man fights Michael Keaton in the warehouse, and everything collapses on top of him, and he just yells because he's trapped under there. Like, that yell was literally like
it was a
it gave me
kid
chills,
screaming for help. Yeah.
Like I think the amount of moments that Spider-Man had outdid the amount of moments that Avengers had for me. Potts?
Honestly, I was pretty. And by the way, Jeff, I'm very surprised that you're actually the one arguing against Spider-Man moving on.
Right, me too.
But I was honestly ready to agree with Spider-Man, but there's something that just never clicked in my head, which is, Jeff, what you were saying was basically his entire motivation is supporting his family and getting by, and he's bottom man. and he has this humongous house, and he's very, very well off. He does not have to keep doing what he's doing. Saying
Why
that,
does he have to
but-
do the last big score? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He's so goddamn rich, and he
Well,
has this.
I
Whole,
think-
and
yeah.
his whole crew quit.
Well-
so he's got no overhead.
Well,
Like,
I think that speaks to the more real life person character development that would ensue with that. Like, he finally he does the first job and he realizes, like, wow, we can get away with this. Like, anybody that realizes that they could get away with that, like, why don't people just rob one bank? Because they realize they can get away with it and they want more, so they do it again because they know they can do it.
yeah,
so
but yeah, I mean, it's the
so
whole, like,
so
one
it's the
last
yeah so it's
score.
it's that, and because like what I said before, he's not a super being, he is just a real person. So as the movie goes on, that greed grows in him and he wants more, and like he goes back for more. It's almost like an addict just going back for more because he knows he can. So like I get why he does it, and I think that understanding that I think I have of him is what makes him a stronger villain for me personally than Loki in the Avengers.
Sure. And pushing that out of my head, I think Michael Keaton just completely nailed that role. Like, he is just especially like you were talking about the scene in the car, as you can see the gears turning in his head and him realizing what's going on. It's so powerful. It's one of the best scenes.
Not to mention, I'm pretty sure I'm like the only person that I've ever talked to that was surprised that he was the girl's dad. I was shocked. I literally said in the theater, I was like, no fucking way. I was shocked, and my friend was like, "You didn't see that coming?" I was like, "No, like what?"
I didn't see that either.
I will say it's because the daughter is biracial, and I didn't realize. I was like, I just kind of assumed. But, like, I was surprised. He opened that door, and I was like, no fucking way. And I said it out loud in the theater, and everybody's, like, started laughing at me. But, like, I was shocked.
I thought you were going to say everybody was like, please stop talking during the movie.
It was
Like,
the same
please shut up.
house. All the scenes for him were shot in the same house that they had the party.
But I think but I think the way they cut that is, like, you didn't really see the house that much.
Yeah, I just instantly recognized the sets. Like, the walls were the same color and
like,
stuff.
yeah,
And
I think if you paid attention to, like,
coincidence in a movie.
yeah, if you paid I realized the second viewing, if you paid attention to the door when he goes to the party, that, you can obviously tell that when they cut to him standing in front of the door,
right?
it's the same thing. But, like,
because it has those window slits in it.
yeah, but, like, when on first viewing, I wasn't just like, dude, let me remember this chick's house. Like, I didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't remember that at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we watch movies differently then.
Yeah, and saying all
I
that.
wasn't like, hey, girl, show me your house.
I have that problem when I'm watching movies. Like Potts said it earlier. Like, I have to, like, force myself to turn my brain off. But, like, with Spider-Man, like, I just super could not, because I'm just, like, such a nerd about it. And so, like, I was like hardcore.
It was a movie you were
analyzing every
super
frame.
into, and you were excited for it a ton, and you were.
Yeah, I was like fully engaged in every frame of that movie, because it was it wasn't shitty either. It wasn't like, I was so excited for it not to be the same. I've seen the Spider-Man origin story done twice. It was done properly with Tobey Maguire. It was done shittily in that new movie, and now it's like, yeah, give me something different. I do not need to see that again, and I really enjoyed. Like, they did such a good job with it. It was so good.
Yeah. But and still saying all of that, I still think that my vote goes to Avengers. It's just just what it is, and what it builds in the MCU, and what it accomplishes, bringing all of those characters together. Loki as a villain, I just like it comes back to that rewatchability thing. I'd rather watch Spider-Man, absolutely. If I had that time to throw on, I'd watch Spider-Man instead. But I think that Avengers is just I think that's the film that deserves more to move on.
Spider-Man is definitely way more rewatchable than Avengers, but again, like, I think Avengers, like I said, like, I think all of it combined together, it's really that MCU building for the Avengers that puts it over for me as well.
Alvin, give me some words here.
Okay, I'll choose Avengers. Since I just watched Spider-Man: Homecoming, I enjoyed it a lot. It was really good, like a lot better than what I was anticipating. I really liked the
Sue Lady.
this, but the one scene that caught my attention the most was like Peter's interaction with like what was it like was it the AI in his suit? I don't remember what that was.
Suit lady, yeah, Karen.
Yeah, yeah, like the interaction he had with the suit while he was like in the was it the warehouse? I don't remember. Like when he
Yeah,
was doing all
the
the
Shield
game
warehouse or the Stark
Yeah.
facility or whatever.
like just the interaction with that I found was like like interesting, like because I wasn't expecting that, and you know, like what you guys have been mentioning, the villain's really good and whatnot. But I have to give it to the Avengers though, because it's more of like a wow factor thing. Because when you think of Spider-Man, you're like, oh yeah, cool, it's Spider-Man. But when you think of the Avengers at the time, it's like, holy shit, they're bringing everyone together, right? It's
And
sort of
at the and like that's
big
the thing.
moment.
Like at the time, it was like it was still risky. The Avengers was still like risky. Like that it wasn't
Man.
bankable to bring all. And like it was so expensive. It was a super expensive movie.
I think it's also the first one to cross the Billy mark.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
I
that's
think
sweet,
it definitely
sweet
was that
Billy.
record.
Yeah, I think what is it? What it gross like 1.3 or something? 1.2?
I'll look it up.
I don't know. 1.5.
Yeah, and like that one continuous, like you mentioned it, Wardog, the hero shot, or that one continuous tracking shot of all of them fighting through all of New York that ends in them assembling. Like that is, if you want to talk about iconic shots in the MCU, that's got to be like one or two. I would say number one or two in my opinion. Like it's up there.
Yeah, like I said, it has moments, but I just thought that Spider-Man had more moments for me personally. But Avengers has moments, like especially like when they're standing in the middle of the road and the Hulk's just like, "I'm always angry," and he just turns
dude.
right there and punches the
That
fucking
moment-
alien whale into the ground. Like that was sick.
And the shawarma scene, I think, also is a
Oh,
good.
Gotta love the shawarma.
So final votes: Alvin,
Avengers.
Minolta,
Avengers.
Potts.
Avengers.
All right, I'll take the 3-1 loss here.
Take that out, bitch.
That's fine. All right. So final quarterfinal matchup. Number 3 seeded Captain America Civil War versus the number 11 seeded Doctor Strange.
We've
Oh.
spent so much time having discussions. Is this really one that we have to talk about? Like, I feel like we just need to sort of keep this moving in some spots.
Uh,
Yeah.
I agree, but I just really quick words. I think that Captain America Civil War is literally a better Avengers. It's literally
Yep.
the better version of Avengers. Like people can say all that they want that the movie is made for just the airport scene. I'm actually okay with that. I will sit through
Fantastic.
that movie in order to get to the airport scene. But I do enjoy the movie getting there as well. And I think what helps that is that the conflict between everybody like that the Sokovia Accords is a believable issue. And I don't feel like they're fighting over nothing. I feel like they're fighting over a believable issue that, like, if that actually happened, like, yeah, I could see that there is a divide. Like, do we hand over the keys to somebody else, or do they abuse those keys, or do we have to, or do we just accept responsibility for everything? And you know, are we more destructive than we are more helpful? I think those are real questions that would have to be asked and would be answered differently by all of these characters. And I find it really believable. Doctor Strange, a great movie visually, but I think the plot falls flat in comparison to the Civil War.
See, I think it's actually kind of the opposite. I thought Doctor Strange's plot is probably a little bit better than Civil War because it actually keeps you a little bit more interested moving forward. Whereas, like you said, in Civil War, you sit through that movie to get to the airport scene because the plot isn't super great, but you know that fucking fight is coming. I think Doctor Strange is probably a slightly better movie, but again, with this one, for me, it's going to tip towards Civil War simply for the MCU world building aspect of it again. Doctor Strange, great intro, even has a little bit extra because of the time stone involved there, but Civil War was actually a very, very key moment in the entire MCU Avengers timeline.
Agreed.
Way, way more so. I totally agree with you, Wardog. I think it's a totally believable issue, and that's been brought up in multiple comics. Like if you think about Watchmen, one of the most famous comics of all time, totally revolves around exactly that issue, the outline of costume superheroes or like that whole thing, right? So no, I think that it's a great issue, and one that that was more Civil War is, and I think that argument of it being a better Avengers is kind of more along the lines of where I wanted Avengers to go. I still think that I mean, I don't know if it's better or not than Avengers, but I really liked how Civil War
Well, we'll get to that
brought
next.
in something that wasn't like a big bad, like a big bad universe killer, and it was dealing with more of these different issues, like a slightly different superhero. But yeah, I got to give it to Civil War over Doctor Strange.
Potts, quick words.
I really don't. I think
Okay.
we'll get more into the nitty gritty of it when it faces off against the other Avengers movie.
Alvin, anything to say?
No.
You put your vote Civil War.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a 4-0 there. All right, so then we'll go to round 16, the first semifinal round we have here.
Man.
The Avengers Infinity War, the number 1 seed, takes on the number 4 seed, Thor Ragnarok. Opening.
I gotta give it to Ragnarok, dude. It's gotta be Ragnarok again. I gotta tell you, man. Like, dude, Infinity War doesn't function as its own movie. Infinity War is cool.
I think you
but
really
Thor-
have to put that argument aside because, like, that's like saying, my spoon doesn't cut as well as my knife. It's just like, one wasn't made
I don't think that's a good
in
analogy
order.
at all.
What I'm trying to say is that
I-
Infinity War wasn't made to be a solo experience. It is for the person who has followed the universe, and I just don't feel like that is a fair a fair
All right, counterpoint.
view on it.
Counterpoint. Okay, Thor Ragnarok, a film that is the 3rd in the Thor series, but Wardog. Here's my question to you. Could a viewer, unbeknownst to the entire MCU, what would be easier for them to get into? Thor Ragnarok or Avengers Infinity War?
But that's not really what we're discussing.
Because both of them are going to have to introduce you to characters you don't know and nothing that's going on, right? Both of them have to do the exact same thing and tell you a story, but only one of them can actually do that, right? Like,
But I don't think that's fair because the Avengers literally was not made to do that.
But okay,
like
so
it was made with the knowledge that
Halo-
that was not
Halo
going to
Reach.
be the objective.
Halo Reach. Can you play Halo Reach without having played any of the other Halo games?
Sure.
Right? And again, I think that I think that you can do or Halo 5 is, I think Green Skull makes an even better point, right? I think that you can have entries in a series and still have them function as movies as a whole. Even the original Avengers movie versus Infinity War. I know these aren't direct comparisons, but you're saying that it's not a direct apples to apples comparison, and I don't think that's valid. I think that even the original Avengers film would do a better job, and you would be able to understand it more as a newbie coming into the franchise than Infinity War. And I think
Well,
Thor
yeah, of course,
Ragnarok
because
is
that's
in the
after
same
4
place.
movies. Because Avengers after 4 movies, Infinity War is after 18.
Yeah, I think it's falling. I think Infinity War in your head is falling to the disadvantage of the fact that of the original Avengers is looking at a universe that is 4 movies big, whereas Infinity War is looking at a universe that is 18 movies big.
Okay, then Civil War. I mean, I think that Civil War is another movie that you could get into and understand better, just because I really think that works against Infinity War, and I think that's a valid criticism of the film. Like, I don't think that it's fair to just throw out that point as an invalid argument, because I really think that it does drag the film down to a certain extent, because you don't get that nice introduction to all of these things. Because I found when I was watching Infinity War, not to obviously a super extended extent, because I've watched these movies and I follow the universe, but I did have to think back, like, oh yeah, where was this person? Where were we at here? Where was this going on? Because you don't get that stuff explained. And because of that, there's more cognitive load on the viewer. It's harder to enjoy the film. And I think that it doesn't stand as well alone as a film as other films in this series of movies. I think that it's like, like if we were talking about Star Wars, like you can't pick out one Star Wars that like can't be compared to the others because it doesn't work or whatever. Like, I think that you are letting Infinity War stand out or be special, and I don't think that you should. I think that you should treat these movies all the same as movies. They're the same thing.
I don't think that's a completely invalid thing to say, but I feel like you're putting an impossible task to the movie. You know, you're giving it something that I don't think there's any possible way that it could.
Bad, but I'm I just think that it suffers because of that. I agree. It is an impossible task, and I think Infinity War does a great job at what it has to do. But because of what it is, by the very nature of what it has to be, it suffers as a movie when compared to other movies in the same series.
Because of that, I just don't feel that it's
I just have a hard time faulting it for that.
I have giving it a hard time faulting it for something that is out of its control. All the other faults that we've talked about in these movies are because of creative decisions that were made incorrectly. And you could say that the entire movie is a creative decision made incorrectly.
Think about Thor Ragnarok versus the Dark World and the original Thor. Like those two movies are out of the control of the Thor Ragnarok director of Taika. I can't even say his name, but they're out of his control. But he was able to make a great Thor Ragnarok film that, again, I think that a viewer who maybe hadn't seen everything would be able to get on board with, even if they hadn't seen Thor and Thor the Dark World, right? And so while I agree, Avengers Infinity War is a much larger version of the third movie in a set of three. It's the 18th movie in a set of whatever. It's not even technically the end. And I get that that's what it has to be, but I think it suffers because of that. And I don't think it's fair to not recognize that as something that it suffers from when you're taking and comparing these things apples to apples.
Even if I were to concede the fact that it suffers from that, I still have a hard time seeing it as not the better movie. I just don't know. I think Avengers Infinity War is truly all the movies we've ever, most of the movies we've seen in the MCU to this point, all in one movie. And like I said at the beginning, when we go through this, it's none of these movies are bad. They just are not as great in comparisons to some of the other ones. But when you get a movie that takes the best of all of them and puts it under one roof, I just have a hard time as seeing that not the better movie than Thor Ragnarok.
See, and in my opinion, it's that whole idea that this is somehow just by having all the characters in the movie, it is the best of all of them.
But it's not that. What I was more saying was that it had something for everybody. One of the things that we've been talking about tonight was the fact that the MCU travels on two paths, and this movie was literally on both paths. There are hilarious moments in this movie, and there are real kick-ass, pedal to the metal. What?
I disagree. I don't think that this does both paths. I think that it's more along the action path. I agree. There's a few bright moments of humor. Okay, so it's Drax, right? The Drax moment with standing very still and why Gamora. It's literally just Drax. Drax is the only funny part of it.
I mean, there's that. There's when Quill meets Thor for the first time and they're trying to outdo each other. He's like, "Oh, you're making your voice deeper." He's like, "No, I'm not." He's like, "You're doing it right now." That part is hilarious. The part with Spider-Man where he meets Doctor Strange. I'm Peter. I'm Doctor Strange. Oh, we're using our made-up names. Then I'm Spider-Man.
But yeah, okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. It does have some funny parts. I feel like it leans just by the nature of what it has to be. It leans more towards the action than the action comedy side of it. But man, I still, especially because Thor has to set up Infinity War to a certain extent. It leads right into it. I just I think Ragnarok is the better all around film. I mean, even think about if you want to talk about having the best of each people, I think that Infinity War unfortunately has to juggle so many people that you don't really get a best of anyone. And that's what makes it good, because they are good ensembles and the characters that they pair together operate well together. But I don't think that you get a lot of character development out of any of the characters. It's a very plot-driven film, whereas Thor Ragnarok does great. Like the whole Hulk situation in Infinity War doesn't exist without Ragnarok. Ragnarok sets all of that up, and then it's literally the only thing you see in Infinity War is consequence, but it doesn't, like, there's no development there. It's literally just the consequence of all of the character development that occurred in Thor Ragnarok is seen in Infinity War. And that's where I don't see it as the best of everybody. It's just like the middle of everybody. It's like, here's where everybody is at right now, but nobody moves forward in that film at all.
Mhm.
They won't move forward until the next film. And like, that's why, again, Avengers Infinity War is this, like, it's the third movie in a franchise that is also a two-parter. It's like the first of the last Harry Potter movies. It's weighed down by all of that stuff, and it suffers because of it. And like, I think that's where these things are coming from, because of where it is. And like, again, it's hard to fault it because it has to do all of that, and it juggles all of it really well. But I think when you compare it up against Ragnarok, which is just like a complete movie, which has great character development, great action scenes, a believable villain, it puts you into the MCU world and everything. I just find Infinity War falls a little flat. Infinity War did everything it had to do, and it did it right, but that doesn't mean that it's going to operate as a better movie than Thor Ragnarok, which I think is a great standalone film.
Yeah, and I feel like this is gonna sound kind of hypocritical to me, but I do agree that it was not the best of everybody. It was everybody, and again, that's the thing that I feel is completely impossible, and it's hard to fault it for. But I think it's much easier to fault it for that than the whole thing of like having to have seen everything for it. And that's why I'm still I'm leaning Ragnarok too. I feel like it just that these smaller stories can just really hit the nail on the head so much harder. And I just agree with everything that Jeff has said in like the last little
Thanks,
little
Mods.
spurt.
Love you, buddy.
Alvin,
Chuck.
thoughts?
You
Oh,
tried to vote against what Guardians won, and I'm upset.
Alvin,
Oh,
thoughts?
it's tricky. Boy. I mean,
Now we're really getting to the tough stuff.
yeah. See, I again, I'll have to say I love both movies equally. And spoiler alert, these movies are next to each other in top 3. Now, where I'm not gonna tell, but they're next to each other. But,
Yeah, they are for me too.
Jesus
But which one's
Christ.
higher?
I'll have to go with Infinity War. It's not like, for me, I will 100% agree with everything Jeff has said. I will 100% admit to that, right? However, what Infinity War does for me over Thor Ragnarok is what I'm going to be thinking about further down the road. The future, now that this catastrophic event has happened, how, like, this is going to obviously affect how most of the movies are going to go down until, the next Avengers movie. So now I'm sitting here
So
thinking to
2
myself,
movies.
I know, but like, you get the point though. Like, now I'm sitting here thinking, like, the impact this has, like, how is it going to affect, in this case, Ant-Man, the Wasp, not Captain Marvel, because that takes place in, was it the 1990s?
The 90s, yeah.
But like, yeah, just more of thinking how, like, this has definitely affected so much, and it's just one of those things where I'm just thinking further ahead, essentially.
Yeah, it's hard to judge because Jeff, you've been talking so much about the impact that each individual movie has on the rest of the universe, and it's hard to judge Infinity War's impact right now because I've got a feeling that this is just all going to be Control Z and just
Exactly.
reset.
And I think that's another big thing that takes away from it. And like, that's again, like I said that, like, because it's outside the movie, so I don't even know how to judge that in terms of like, but it did take the oomph out for me too. Like, it really did.
Yep. All right.
Final votes. Alvin.
Ragnarok.
Wow, you
Wait,
just
what? That's like
you just literally flipped a
Yeah.
page.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna tie this and go into the fucking chat.
I know. I was looking forward to the chat vote too. We should still run a chat vote, even if it's a.
Wow, Alvin just ruined it. So 3-1 for Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Put it out.
that's not how I was expecting that to go. I'm still gonna run a chat poll though. Let me set this up.
God damn. Yeah, somebody run a chat poll. Somebody agree with me. God damn. right.
However, some of the viewers will agree with, like, at least the top 3 in my list.
There you go.
But
Go
This
vote.
should have been round robin. Like this, I feel like we need some of these matchups just didn't.
Well, it's not. Well, that's why we're gonna go over our lists quickly at the end.
Yeah.
All right. So next round is round 17. The number 7 seed original Avengers versus the number 3 seed Captain America Civil War. Opening thoughts.
Ooh.
Here's what I just want to see the end of this poll really quick. So I just want to. I think you should throw it into the bracket that it was a 3-2, and that chat did go Infinity War.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Just because I think it's worth saying. You know.
All right, chat was 3-2.
What are we on to now?
The Avengers versus Civil War.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Versus good Age of Ultron.
Honestly, I think this is really easy for me. I think Civil War was a better Avengers movie than Avengers was.
See, I disagree. I think Civil War had the better ending aspect of it than maybe the Avengers in the airplane scene. But I mean, you said it yourself, Wardog. You sit through the start of this movie. Like, I don't really love the start of Civil War. I love the payoff, but the start of it is not great. And while I agree that the outlawing of superheroes or like that complication is a great storyline, I think they really bumbled it because you don't really give a fuck because all you want to see is these characters fight on the airfield.
I mean,
And,
I
like,
would make the same argument that I sit through Avengers just to watch the New York fight. Because I feel as if I do that.
No, but I don't know.
Because I don't really care. I don't really care.
Thor in the forest, that fight's pretty good.
I mean, yeah, that's cool, but like I feel like it has the same amount of filler, you know? I feel that as I sit through Captain America Civil War to get to the airport scene, I sit through a lot of filler to get to the New York scene because I really don't care about the ego battle between all of them because you know that they come together in the end. Like it's just the superhero, you know, formula. Whereas I will concede to the fact that the New York fight did seem to have more stakes than the airport scene in Civil War, because you know in Civil War they're making jokes like about pulling their punches and like not really hurting each other or whatever, but like there was consequence. Oh, I can turn this off now. There was consequence to the airport scene because you know fucking Don Cheadle gets shot down, man, and he's paralyzed. You know, so like I don't know.
Well,
I feel like
in Infinity War, like it's like the thing is that like that to me that didn't have any effect on me at all because like I was like, but this is War Machine. He like literally is inside of an exosuit. Like he doesn't need his human body at all. Like the whole thing is the suit. Like to me, the War Machine thing, it didn't have any impact to me at all because it was like in the Avengers universe, that's like the least of their problems, dude. If someone
also,
dies,
he's Tony Stark's friend. Tony can like what they did with the movie. They did give him like an
yeah, they gave him in Infinity War he has those robot legs or whatever, but like like that's it had like similar to the Avengers Infinity War thing where I felt like it pulled the punch. It was the same thing with that where I was like, why is everyone so concerned? Like he's not dead, so and we know we have like the most advanced technology. We didn't even know about Wakanda at that point. There was no Wakanda, and I was still like, yeah, Rhodey will be fine. Like we're not too worried about him. I just I don't know. I mean, like Civil War was good, but like I think Avengers as an overall movie, and like maybe now like several. It's like I think to a certain extent the age of the films affects your feelings of them because you've probably seen Avengers a few times, Wardog, and I feel like while now maybe you sit and wait for the New York fight, the first few times, like especially like you said, I mean, this was really the start, and like the ego battle between them now feels played out to me, but I think originally it was just really cool to see these characters interacting on screen, like together. And like, I don't know, I really liked seeing all of that. Like even just like the immediate, not just the ego battles, but I thought like it was cool to see the little alliances like Bruce and Tony like immediately becoming friends and like hitting it off in Avengers is just so great. And they have such good chemistry. And then like, you know, like the Tony Steve sort of like battles that they have good sparring in that other way, you know, against each other. And I think that while some of that those lens aren't as fun to watch as the action scenes, they're still good. There's still gold in those scenes. They still got great dialogue. There's some really really solid dialogue in the original Avengers, whereas I feel like Civil War doesn't really have that. Like if you're going to compare the non-action scenes, so the dramatic scenes of these two films, I really feel like Avengers takes it in terms of just like some funny parts and some great lines and just really really good moments. You know, if we're talking about moments, I think Avengers has more moments.
See, I think Civil War had more moments. Like I felt like the point where Tony finds out that it was Bucky that killed his parents, and it was all gloves off, and it was Iron Man versus Captain America and Bucky. Like I felt like that wasn't just a moment, like that was just like that whole scene was captivating, and they're fighting, and when Cap throws his shield into Iron Man's chest and like completely rips it in half. And like
you're talking about one fight. This is all one fight. This is all one scene in that movie.
But that's even separate from the gem of the movie, which is the airport scene.
Yeah, but like again, I think that's two. But whereas I think of Avengers, it's like the Thor Iron Man initial fight, Loki coming. The whole start of Avengers is fucking badass, dude. And then like even just like the Galaga jokes and stuff that on the helicarrier, or like I said, when the heroes are brought together and Tony and Bruce chilling out. Like the New York fight is a great one, but like I think there's a lot of really killer moments in Avengers, man.
Other points of view?
I'm kind of sidetracked, busy with something really quick. I'll be back to the discussion afterwards, but I've already made up my mind when it comes to voting.
Okay, well, I just find it's hard to. I think both movies accomplish pretty much the same thing, in the fact that they're movies to basically see heroes together. I just think that Civil War did it better for me. And I think that Civil War does have an advantage when it comes to cast. Like, you can't ignore the fact that Spider-Man made that movie way better than it would have been without him. Like, it didn't suffer, like how you were bringing up before, how Avengers had so many characters and you were keeping track of Infinity War, how it was keeping track of so many characters and stuff. I feel like it had a good amount of relevant characters throughout the first two acts of the movie, and then brought in kind of like Ant-Man just for that airport scene, and then brought in Spider-Man just to complete their part in the airport scene. I don't think it suffers from the amount of characters that are in it. I think it actually helps it a lot, and I think Civil War just did what Avengers did, but just a little bit better for me. Alvin?
Oh, Jesus. Damn it.
And I'd like to say that I've seen Civil War more than Avengers, and I still like it more.
This is going to be so hard. My per usual answer, I like both. Again, it's a really dumb thing with me again. Mellow, so everything is just a flat line for me. I like them both equally. But I'm gonna have to go with Avengers.
Man, and then
Good man.
I guess I'm gonna have to have Potts tie me up here, man.
The thing is, if I can vote for multiple things, like, I could totally do that, but like it's not allowed, so I can't. See, what I like about the Avengers is that it brings everyone together, and what I love about Civil War as well, they break.
I just feel that the cast is a strong asset of Civil War, and again, I just think it had better moments for me.
I feel like the Avengers cast is so good because it's all the core six that really focused in, and you get that shit. Whereas even Civil War, like to a certain extent, suffers from that bloat where it starts to become untenable to carry all these characters. But like Avengers, it was still possible to do it. Like there was only 6 Avengers. Like there was not that many characters. Like a 6-person ensemble, that's like the cast of Friends, man. Like you can totally do that. And I think that even Civil War, while you're right, it definitely doesn't handle it too roughly, and I think Infinity War does it very well as well. It still suffers from that bloat, and I think also it's just like Avengers is a very special movie and iconic in its place in the MCU. I think very similar to Iron Man. It's just, it also has a little bit of a special asterisk next to it for me, more so than Civil War. Civil War, it's a good movie, good Captain America movie, don't get me wrong, but Avengers is one of those, like, again, like I would say, like Iron Man, Avengers, and Infinity War are like three very, very keystone, like probably put Ragnarok in there too, but you know what I mean? Like some of them, regardless of movie quality, are more key to the MCU universe as a whole. And I think Avengers is one of those, more of a key than Civil War is, just because of what it is as a movie.
I often find it hard to like win arguments about something else over Avengers or Iron Man because like I do feel that people give it special treatment just because it is like, yeah, it's like, you know, it's like why people give Halo CE special treatment, because it is the first, it is the establishing, and like I don't, man, I just like I try to not give it, you know, the extra bump because of that. And I think when I don't give it that, you know, that credit of, you know, being a good movie just because of like you know, its point in the timeline, like I just think when it comes down movie to movie that I enjoy Civil War more.
All right, well, let's vote.
Alvin.
Avengers.
Minalta.
Avengers.
Potts.
Sorry, Wardog.
Son of a bitch.
Oh, Wardog.
Even putting aside, I didn't like talk of anything in that that entire discussion, but even putting aside what Avengers is and what it does for, you know, the entire, I just feel like it just has so many better hits scene wise than Civil War does.
All right, and just really quick, I put a bronze medal match in here. I don't know why, but just really quick, I just don't even want to go into like reasonings that much. If you have like one sentence to add on, go ahead. But for bronze medal, the number 1 seeded Avengers Infinity War versus the number 3 seeded Captain America Civil War. Alvin.
There's gotta be no contest.
IW.
Minalta.
IW.
Potts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a no contest there. Like again, Civil War does a lot of things good, but Infinity War has like 2 to 3 times the amount of characters to handle, and it does it better than Civil War does, easily, hands down.
I'd agree. I think that Civil War, what it does like fall victim to is the fact that some of its cast is just there as airport scene cast, right? Like they have no development throughout the movie. They're just assembled by either Captain America or Iron Man to be brought in for a scene just to make it more epic than it would have been. And then, you know, that's their whole that's the whole device of them in the movie. It's just to be brought in.
It's a great action figure fight, but that's all it is. It's just you, you know, childhood you banging your action figures together, bam, bam, boom, boom, right? And it's fucking awesome. But yeah, that's all it is.
Man, you're a nerd. Jesus.
All right, so final matchup, the finals of the night, what everybody's been waiting for, an unexpected finals, I would think, for myself.
Yeah, very much so.
The number 4 seeded Thor Ragnarok versus the number 7 seeded Avengers movie. I think this is really easy for me. I think Thor Ragnarok is way better.
See, I think they're both super duper good. And I think Thor Ragnarok is probably a better movie overall, just because, like, especially if I'm talking about standalones, because Avengers, you definitely need, I think Avengers versus Avengers Infinity War, Avengers functions better as a standalone film, but Avengers versus Thor Ragnarok definitely stands better as a standalone film. Avengers needs a little bit more ramp up, even though technically both of them require, you know, 4 to 3 films or whatever. But I think that, like, I want to give Avengers the top spot just because, like, again, I think that was the first culmination. It was a very keystone moment.
No. Do not give it the nostalgia factor.
I'm just giving it the first. I don't know. I mean, I really think that original Avengers, if we're going to talk about MCU and world building, Thor Ragnarok is great and it sets up Infinity War, but it doesn't do as much for the MCU as Avengers does as a whole. And then Ragnarok makes up for that by probably being an overall better movie. But then I think I have to give it to Avengers just because I give it that special asterisk point. It gets the Iron Man, Avengers, and Infinity War buff of being like keystone moments that have to happen in the MCU. And while Thor Ragnarok sets up one of those keystone moments, it isn't actually one of them. And so I just can't, I think for those reasons, I think I have to give it to Avengers. I think both of these movies are very rewatchable, very fun. I think both of them are funny. I think both of them have great moments. I think both of them are well directed, and both of them show character development very well, because I think Avengers can do that because they only have to show the 6 characters, and it's the first time that they're all meeting each other. So it's very easy to develop all those characters. Whereas, like, again, Infinity War, there's just too many. And so I think that, yeah, like, to me, it's and again, I'll totally say that, but I think it's these keystone moments, and that is what puts Avengers over Ragnarok for me. But that's pretty much it. I think it's so close.
Refusing to give Avengers the keystone moment, just looking at them as movies, I think the only thing I enjoy better about Avengers than Thor Ragnarok is the villain. I think just Loki is the only edge that Avengers gets over Thor Ragnarok. I think I like everything better about Thor Ragnarok besides the villain. Like, I think it has way more moments, both like superhero action moments and funny moments. It has the endearing quality of being like a buddy film between Thor and Hulk. I find myself referencing Ragnarok way more than I ever did the Avengers. I just like everything about Thor Ragnarok way better besides the villain.
I don't know. I just have a hard time agreeing with that. And honestly, I think you might be downplaying how important the villain is, because I just cannot see putting Thor as the winner of this entire bracket with a villain, with the antagonist as weak as Hela. And even beyond the villain, I just think
you have to think of it. It's an antagonist tag team, right? It's not just Hela. It's the Grand Master too.
That's where, like, again, it suffers, right? Because that's the problem, is that it starts out as the Grand Master, and that's so good, and then Hela comes in, and you're like, what the? It's like Far Cry, when they kill off the great villain halfway through, and you're left with the other dude, and you're like, what the fuck is this? And you're looking around. Like, I love Ragnarok, but that really holds it back. And I think that Avengers, on the other hand, if you're going to compare villains, I mean, it's easy, right? I mean, we've jerked Thanos off a whole lot, right? And like, really, I mean, Thanos is the big villain after Loki in Avengers, and Loki is a great villain as well. And so I think that he easily beats Hela. Maybe not the Game Master, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's the only point I'm willing to concede. I don't think that Avengers does anything else better than Thor does.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, again, I think they're both pretty equal. And like, the thing that's really pushing it over for me, other than, yeah, I think the villain point is really good. And I hadn't really thought about it, but yeah, Avengers definitely is a better villain than Ragnarok.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, if you're not giving it the keystone moment, yeah, I don't know how to help
and I'd
you,
like to use your own argument against you that I would rather have somebody watch Thor Ragnarok as a standalone movie over the Avengers.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. I think Thor stands alone much better as a movie in and of itself, but I think Avengers makes up for that fact by being much more key to the MCU universe. Like, it has much more. Thor sets up Infinity War, but Infinity War does more for the MCU, right? Just like Avengers does more.
Then why didn't we make Infinity War win over Thor? You guys are inconsistent with your arguments.
Thor isn't as good of a movie on its own as Avengers, in my opinion. Because Infinity War has too many characters. There's no character development in Infinity War because there's 60 bajillion characters across the screen, right? Avengers, there's 6 characters. It's all their first time meeting. There is actual character development. It is the best of them.
I would say that there's interaction. I wouldn't say that there's development, because that's what their movies previous to Avengers were for.
I totally disagree. I think it was all of them individually egotistical and everything coming together and realize like that all of their characters moved forward. In Infinity War, they've already been together and broken up and all this other stuff, and there's just way too much going on for them to like have to come together. But it was Avengers was the whole character development is like the fact that they are overcoming that, and that is character development for all of them, because the whole thing is that like if you want to talk about Wardog, the like some of these interesting other comic storylines, some of the main things is the fact that like all of these guys are so egotistical on their and thinking that they're on their own as these superpowered beings. And so Avengers is the first time that they all come together, and it's humbling for all of their characters. And I think not only that, like specifically if we're talking about character development, Iron Man, like all of Tony Stark's shit, like for the next 2 movies is set up by Avengers, right? Like him going to New York, his trouble with like, does he sacrifice himself or not? What's more important, Pepper or the world? All of that is delivered in Avengers. And then there's tons of other stuff like on the side, not as much for Iron Man because Iron Man was the core character there, but like Thor, his humbling and stuff, like going from being a god to understanding that like Earth's mightiest heroes might have something that could help him in this threat. Like again, Bruce Banner, like his whole everybody's angry, like not everybody, his secret that he's angry all the time, his character development, because again, like Incredible Hulk was sort of like a Control Z, like Edward Norton isn't there anymore, so they had to do a lot on Bruce in Avengers. And so I think that Avengers and Thor are equal in character development parts in terms of moving these characters forward, because Avengers really does do that because they only had 6 characters to develop, so that it doesn't have to be just these short shots of like a joke or like doing something cool. You can actually have a long scene between Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, you know what I mean, and where they're just talking and working on stuff. And you can have 3 of those, right? Because I think there are that many, you know what I mean? And whereas you'd never fit that into Infinity War in a million years.
Potts, get in here.
I don't know. I just feel like there isn't anything for me to say that there hasn't already been said.
Let's just vote. Let's just vote. Let's call it to a vote.
Yeah, let's vote. I don't know what to say.
Alvin.
God damn it.
Just say
Alvin's
Thor
going-
so we can let
Alvin's
the
going
chat
la-
decide it.
Alvin's going last. Minolta.
Avengers.
Potts.
Avengers.
I'm taking it up to Ragnarok. Alvin.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go with Avengers.
Son of a
My
bitch.
man.
You know what,
My
Wardog? I respect you for setting up this whole bracket just so you could get 3 people together to disagree with your opinion.
Yeah,
Well-
yeah. I like that, like, because Green Skull wasn't involved. You can't say that we teamed up on you. Like, he was in the chat, but, like, you know.
That's not the excuse I'm willing to make. I know that this is just an argument.
No,
of...
you're gonna make it a completely different excuse, right?
What? No, I'm not gonna make it. If you would have let me finish, I was gonna say I just know that this is an argument of personal opinion. So you know, like if I just like am outnumbered, I'm just outnumbered. You know.
It's true. It's true.
We're not fighting again. We're not
honestly,
fighting
like,
something factual.
Wardog, you did. This was a really good idea for a stream. I had so much fun. Like this, like legitimately, like. I really like this.
I guess I can announce what we're doing next before we do our personal lists.
Sure.
Next is going to be the Harry Potter series.
Oh, I love it, dude. I love it.
So we're gonna have once I start a new job on Monday. So like once I have my schedule knocked down for my new job, what's gonna happen is people that are a part of the Discord, that you could see the invite in the bottom right hand corner of your screen right now. If you join that Discord, I'm going to post a schedule in there, and we're going to do a weekly watch along of the movies, and then we're going to kind of do the same thing. But we're going to do it differently, because we're not going to do a bracket. We're just going to say, we're just going to rank them as a group. So, do you think 2 is better than 1? Do you think 3 is better than 1 or 2? Kind of thing.
Maybe if there were 18 Harry Potter movies, you could maybe fill out a bracket.
Yeah. How many is there? 8? There's 8, right? Because there's 7 books and 7 is 2 parts.
Part 2.
Okay. But yeah, what that's gonna be the next franchise we're gonna tackle is the Harry Potter series. So if you guys want to be a part of that, make sure you guys either hit that Discord button there in the Mixer chat, or you use that invite down in the bottom right hand corner of your screen to join. That's where the schedule will be posted. Somebody just asked, Monkey Boy asked, will you include Fantastic Beasts? Sure, we will include Fantastic Beasts in the
I like
ranking
that.
there.
I like that. It's all part of the timeline.
Yeah,
It's all in the same
so
universe.
so I'm tackling a universe here. So yeah, anything that's a part of the universe will be included. So the 8 Harry Potters and Fantastic Beasts. So we'll get a watch along schedule going there, and then once we complete our watch along, we will have another Harry Potter movie ranking stream here on Mixer.com/WarDogTV. But boys, it is time for
I
personal
want to do the
lists,
lists.
and I'll go first. If you guys have them typed up. If you copy pasta them in Discord, I'll show them like as I show mine. But here's my I didn't realize that. It gets
Yeah,
covered
I
by
would
the
just
names.
leave it over
LOL.
the.
So here's my list. So when I made my list, not only did I 1 through 19 rank them, I also broke them out into tiers because I feel like a lot of my rankings, like. And I'll give you examples as I go through. I don't mind if some of them flip or if some of them move a couple of spaces. So I feel as long as the movies are within the same tier that they belong. So my number 1 is Avengers Infinity War. I've been defending it a lot tonight. I don't think I have to speak on how much I like that. Number 2 is our number 2, Thor Ragnarok. Again, I just think it's the gem of going that comedy style of superhero movie. 3 and 4 are Captain America Civil War and Captain America the Winter Soldier. That's an example of 2 I don't really care if they flip-flop or not. I just think that they're a real staple in kind of how the characters interact with each other, and the grittiness and the down-to-earthness of Winter Soldier I think is a really nice refresher. Number 5, Spider-Man Homecoming. Again, defended this movie, so I don't think I need to say more. Love the villain. Love the fact that, the fact that it is a Spider-Man movie does give it some personal points with me because he's one of my favorite superheroes ever. 6, Black Panther. Had a really hard time not putting this in 5. So like those 2 could probably flip around, but again, the cultural impact did something for me really personally, and that's probably just because of like my background and how I came up, where I was raised, and kind of just like my personal empathy that I had with Killmonger. 7 is the original Avengers. Keystone movie. I did have a hard time putting it this far down because it's a Keystone, but with that aside, I feel that personally I just didn't enjoy it as much as the top 6. 8, Guardians 2, 9, Guardians 1. Again, you could flip-flop these around. I think that they were both good movies. They both had kind of the same charm. Guardians 2, the only reason Guardians 2 got an edge for me was Yondu's death. That was basically it. That really big change of emotion is what did it for me. Number 10, the original Iron Man. Was gonna put this at 8 originally, but then I kind of thought about rewatchability. I'd rather watch the Guardians movies first. So those are all kind of flexible in there. But can't deny the fact that it is another cornerstone movie of the MCU. 11, Doctor Strange. 12, Ant-Man. Again, 2 great origin stories that I think they're pretty solid. I like Strange better than Ant-Man just because of the visual effects and the ending where Strange outsmarts Dormammu instead of like blowing him up somehow, or some like big action sequence, something like that. I think that gives it a little bit of the edge. Going down to my 3rd tier, 13, Avengers Age of Ultron. Cool action sequences, introduces us to some cool characters that we've now grown to love and cherish, some more than others. But, just an overall, like, okay movie. Like, would watch it if it's on, but not going to go out of my way to see it. Iron Man 2, the same explanation. He just wants his bird. Just, like, give it to him. I don't know. 15, Captain America, the First Avenger. Again, a movie that just didn't keep me entertained the whole time, but definitely not as bad as the movies below it for me. 16, Iron Man 3. Just getting, like, 16 down is to the point where the movies where I would be okay, like, maybe seeing this movie like once every couple of years. I really don't have the need to rewatch it, very soon. 17, 18, Thor the Dark World, and Thor. The only reason that I have Thor the Dark World, actually, the bottom three, I really don't care. The bottom three are all kind of just trash. Compared to the other movies, I think they just fall flat of the bar that Marvel sets for itself. And as you can see, like, Thor has redeemed itself in its last one, and the Incredible Hulk, obviously there's some property issues that are going on there, so seeing another solo Hulk film is probably not in like the greatest of chances, but the character has done well for itself in the ensemble movies. So next we'll go with Jeff's, because Jeff sent me his on Discord. And let's see what he's got here. All right, Jeff, talk us through.
Oh, double space and everything. Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm a real professional.
Was he just about to say he... Oh, no. Discord, no.
The Incredible Hulk is slightly less shitty than that.
Can you start over because my Discord disconnected? Go ahead.
Thor the Dark World is a shitty movie. Avengers Age of Ultron is slightly less shitty than it is. The Incredible Hulk is slightly less shitty than that. After that, Thor is a little bit less shitty. And then Iron Man 3 gets even less shitty. Then we get to Captain America, which isn't really that shitty. And then Iron Man 2 is only a little bit shitty, especially with the bird and stuff. Then there's Black Panther, which is actually starting to get good. Like, there's parts of this movie that are shit, but there's parts of it that are super awesome. Then we go to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which also has a pretty good mix of shit and great stuff. As we get into the Ant-Man, we actually start getting over the 50% mark, where this Ant-Man, I would say, is like 70% great, only like 30% shit. Doctor Strange continues to push these shit to the edges of the margin, where I would say that movie is only like 25% shit, maybe.
Damn.
Winter Soldier, again, just a little bit less shitty than Doctor Strange, because I think that it's like it doesn't have that awkward starting to it. Civil War, continuing, like, there's very few shitty parts of this movie. Infinity War, not shitty, but like it was shitty for what it had to do. So, it gets there. Ragnarok, barely shitty at all, like, except for the protagonist, maybe. Guardians of the Galaxy, almost no shit whatsoever, except for like maybe like the villain was okay, but not as good as some of the other like really great villains, I think, in the MCU. Spider-Man Homecoming, I mean, just there's no shit in that movie at all. It's just great. It's just incredible. All really top quality stuff. Again, I'm gonna put, so number one and number two, the reasons are, like, again, I'm giving these guys the keystone spots, and so obviously we lost Papa Tran.
That was happening that time.
Yeah. But yeah, I think both I would consider Iron Man is the original cornerstone, and so it gets the number one slot for me. It started the universe, it set out the format, it proved that this could work, it started everything. None of the rest of this list exists without that movie. And then Avengers, to me, was just like, it was a huge thing. I haven't mentioned this at all, even a little bit, but I am personally like just a huge Joss Whedon fanboy. And so when I heard that he was getting Avengers, and then just like the way that he handled that movie personally was really, really great to me, because I really love his direction and most of the work that he does in his writing. And so on top of that, it had to get the number 2 slot, but I still had to give one to Iron Man, because it's the Jesus, it's the cornerstone, it's the original, and it's such a great movie. It's like, it's an incredible, like, again, story circle and story symmetry. If you know anything about that, Iron Man just like it personifies it. It's incredibly balanced. I'm gonna shut up now.
All right, that's Jeff's list. Papa Tran, since I don't have Potts's on hand, go ahead and explain to us your list.
Oh, do I have to explain it? Oh boy.
Well, you just go through like just like we did, really quick. Why
I didn't explain most of mine.
Yeah,
I said they were shitty. I mean, like, if you want to do just like your top 5 or whatever, like, I think that's what most people care about.
I chose Infinity War number 1 because it's just more fresh on the mind, and also I pretty much enjoyed it a lot. And again, just like my previous answer, like the whole idea of how it affects the future of the rest of the MCU movies. Granted, the fact that we're getting sequels to dead characters breaks the whole, that immersion already, but you get the point. Thor Ragnarok, for number 2, I really loved. Really enjoyed it. Really great viewing experience, especially with my family. My mom and dad loved it, so gets a number 2 in my spot. Number 3 goes to Avengers because it just has a sweet spot. Civil War, again, just another Avengers movie, I guess. And I know I mentioned this with Potts and Wardog, but like this list is not a legit one because I always tend to fluctuate and I do the take backsies. So this list can.
It's okay. This is of the
Yeah.
moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, of the moment. Anyway, Ironman, I could have had it at 3 or 4, but there's moments where like there's a few things where I just did not enjoy about Ironman, but like other than that though, it is the foundation. It is the first stepping stone of everything. So as long as it's in top 5, I'm perfectly fine with that. Number 6, Winter Soldier. Like my previous reason, some of the stuff they did in that kickstarted a bunch of other stuff that the MCU started doing afterwards. Number 7, I put Homecoming there because just like Jeff, I'm a pretty big Spider-Man fanboy. So I'm going to put it right there. And also I like their interpretation of Peter for this iteration of Spider-Man, unlike the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. Number 8.
Wait. You didn't like Tobey Maguire Spider-Man?
Well, I liked it, but I prefer Tom Holland over Tobey Maguire. Like, there's some things that didn't fit right with me, but I still like him overall, like, because he is the original Spider-Man, right? But like, I just prefer Tom Holland now that I've seen Homecoming, as of like a couple hours ago.
I'm just putting it out there. I love the Tobey Maguire ones.
I'm definitely like a huge fanboy of the Tobey Maguire films. I mean, as much as I like Homecoming, it doesn't stand up for me.
Go ahead, Papa Tran. Number 8.
Number 8, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, again, it kickstarted another thing in the MC, which is the comedy, because most of the other movies didn't have the kick with the comedicness like they do now. So, gotta give that to number 8. That, and it also released near my birthday, I believe August 1st or something like that. I don't remember. Number 9, Black Panther. I really enjoyed Black Panther, like what Wardog mentioned. It has like a cultural influence, and it's really like I really enjoyed the whole Wakanda building, like that sort of like sort of the idea of like exploring how Wakanda works. Not the whole technically advanced part, but more of the tribal side of things, especially with like the waterfall fights that everyone seems to be agreeing on and stuff like that. Number 10, Ant-Man. I love. Yeah, Wakanda Ring. Oh, Dan. Ant-Man for number 10. I just really.
What kind of nonsense is that in the chat?
But I really enjoyed Ant-Man. I enjoyed it a lot more than what other people have been saying. So there's that.
Fair.
Age of Ultron for number 11. I like Potts. I really enjoyed Age of Ultron. Now, granted, the whole
Good movie.
mix-up has soured it a little bit. But other than that, though, knowing the actual intentions with how the story was supposed to go, I have it high on the list there. Doctor Strange on number 12. Because again, visual effects. It was a really good movie. Again, it sort of mirrors Iron Man with like the whole idea of, like the egotistical like cockiness, and then the sudden shift by the end of the movie, or the development by the end of the movie. My bad. So there's that. I have Guardians 2 at 13. While I did enjoy the movie, it just did not have the charm that Guardians 1 did. Most of the jokes fell flat with me, especially when they just relied on the penis stuff, so there's that. Iron Man 2, I like I mentioned earlier, don't remember much. I did, again, most of these movies I did enjoy, but either I don't remember much, or just, while I did enjoy it, there are just many things I disliked about the movies. No, Dan's right, I don't like penis stuff. Please don't talk about the penis stuff. No, some of them just did not work. But anyway, again, like Iron Man 2, I only remember the suitcase and then the electric whips. Like, that's it. Thor Dark World, I was actually going to have it be a 16, but whatever. The list is done. Thor Dark World, I enjoyed it, but it is definitely really weak when it comes to most of the plot stuff. Some of the action sequences are pretty cool, especially when Thor is like exploring the different realms. or at least 2 or 3 of the different realms. That is. Captain America at 16. Captain America felt really weak to me. Like, it had some good moments, but I just didn't get that MCU feel that we got with most of the movies now. Like, it just didn't feel. I can't express it well enough, but it just didn't give me the punch that it was meant to. Iron Man 3. It had its moments, but it just didn't. Some of the stuff in that was just rather lacking to me. 18 Thor, it was just a hot mess. And Hulk, there's no comment. No comment for Hulk.
Aw,
Solid
poor
list.
guy.
Solid list. Potts, are you prepared?
All right. So here's the deal.
So the deal.
Forgot that you mentioned to-do lists. I've been kind of busy this week, but because I'm so dedicated to this.
Are you prepared? Because
I-
I'll type it out as you talk.
No. I've typed it out for you. That
Oh.
I've been working on it. Don't you worry. So and I'm honestly, before we really get into this, I respect all of your guys' opinions. Absolutely.
But they're
I
all
really do
trash.
feel like, but they are kind of trash, and I feel like this really is the definitive the ranking of the entire MCU.
All
here.
right, yeah.
So
I'm ready to see
actually,
this.
Wardog, if you want to pull up Google Images,
Oh wow.
we'll start
this-
from the top here.
All right, hang on. Let me. So this is for Potts.
All right. So
What?
Go ahead and pull up.
No,
Go
you're
ahead,
trolling.
pull up Google Images and search Scarlett Johansson Civil War.
Oh my god.
I just want to make sure everybody has some visual, you know,
And
So
assets
Civil
here.
War
to
is the
really...
best hair of all of them.
I think so. I think you've really got what it
He's got
is
the
here.
swoop. Oh, look!
yeah,
look,
like
the
this
Mexican
one with the
guy.
curls.
No. Scroll
Yeah.
down. Scroll down. Scroll down. Scroll down. That one. There you go. That's.
Yeah, I really feel like that's sort of the definitive. You've
So-
got the length, you've got the
Oh, shoot.
curls, you've got the color. And I just don't think that there's really
Let's
anything
see
that
Age
stood
of
up to
Ultron.
it.
Show me Age of Ultron, Wardog. I want to see. I want to see the runner-up.
Alright. Scarlett Johansson, Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron salary? No, just Age of Ultron. Let's see. Oh, the runner-up's good. I like the runner-up.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what you're
yes.
seeing here is a natural evolution of what you got in the first Avengers. It adds little bit of volume and a little bit more texture than what you get in the first Avengers, and I think that's it's a natural step up, you know. And
Yeah,
I think they really made
You
some good
let
creative
her
decisions
key
here.
on.
I agree. I think
That's not the list that I've established here. Jeff.
Can you
We
give
can
me
have
a
separate
top
stream for
10
that if it's
of
necessary.
parts of your body that you would let ScarJo pee on?
my elbow.
Why the elbow?
That'd be in there, I think, in that top 10. So, if you want
The
to
elbow's
move
a
on to
good one.
Infinity War now.
That's a good one. Elbow party.
Oh, okay, hang on.
The weenus?
The weenus. Wait, here's my real list. The list I posted is actually fake. Here's my.
Oh
real
my
list.
god,
Too late.
somebody
You've had your chance.
it actually auto-corrected the Infinity War hair.
Because it really is. It's a drastic sort of departure.
like
from what
it.
we've
I
seen
think
in
she
the
looks
MCU so
hot.
far. I think it's pretty solid, honestly. I
It
think
looks
that
like
it
they shaved
goes
her
with her
eyebrows.
well.
Like this is
Dude,
her
dude,
this is her in
comparison.
real life and I'm a fan of this. I'm a
Do the
fan of the
comparison.
real
Absolutely.
short hair.
I
Open
think
up
that
the
color matches her well. I
comparisons.
think it's good.
That thing she
Yeah.
has bangs.
No, the other one.
Wait, oh, where? You see a
The one
this?
with the tits. Oh, it's too small. Never mind.
Yeah, it's small image. Small image, Jeff. Oh wait. It's not a real image though. It's fake.
Yeah, but still, like the red hair just looks better to me, man.
True, but I don't think she looks bad.
No, I agree.
Redhead,
That's why
redhead
this is-
definitely better.
The red hair's better.
It's just
Even
that-
with like the.
Oh,
the
dude,
weenus
right
is,
here,
like,
look at
it's so
this!
short.
Oh,
Oh,
look
shit.
at this. There we go. Yeah, this is
Iron
pretty
Man
much
2
it then.
is the worst, dude.
I
The
would
Winter
not
Dude,
Soldier
say
is
that
the
at all.
worst. Oh no,
No, the winner.
Soldier's
Yeah,
pretty
the
bad.
straight does. No. Civil War.
Yeah, if you-
Bombshell.
If you can head back to the list actually if you want to.
Iron Man 2 is pretty fucked up.
Oh.
Compare the list. Yeah, I want to see the.
Hang on. There was where.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I think we're
So,
pretty similar in here. So on to Avengers.
Avengers and then
Avengers
Iron
1,
Man 2.
Move it to the right.
Avengers 1 basically is sort of a toned down version of Age of Ultron. I don't think it hits as well. I think the color's just a little bit too bright and it just a little bit too much for it. But Iron Man 2 is when it really starts hitting, you know, It's just
That's-
overboard. You know,
yeah,
it was the
it's like
first shot for
90s.
her. It's just it looks like a wig. It looks like a shag carpet wig.
Damn.
And then as this is ranking the entire MCU, all the other MCU movies that did not completely butcher her hair are right slotted in between Iron Man 2 and Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier.
Which what were they
Um,
thinking?
Truly, in the Incredible Hulk, we talked about this. He fought the Abomination, but I think the true Abomination didn't come until Captain America.
It was that haircut.
Oh
The
my
God.
color's fine, but just the flat, just it's the boring. It's just
And look at
Yeah,
her
it-
face.
it's-
Boring
Even
is
that
boring's
expression.
hitting the nail on the head.
yeah.
All
I
right.
just-
Well,
I just-
thanks for stopping by the ScarJo hair ranking stream.
Let's get a round of applause for ScarJo hair rank
Let's-
stream.
yeah. She was beautiful no matter what, except for Winter Soldier.
Where
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
just terrible,
Winter
just the
Soldier's
worst.
Awful. You know, Iron Man 2 really pushing it, but Winter Soldier, oof. All right.
If we're gonna win
But
this
for
too.
real, that's all we have here. So this is your final ranking here for our
Avengers takes it all.
Avengers takes it all. You know, the goddamn nostalgia got to you and it blinded you. But you know, it's
It
all
wasn't
right.
nostalgia. Watched this movie recently.
Well, listen, it's the fact that it's a keystone. It got you. It blinded you. But whatever. This is our final ranking. Thank you to everybody who joined. If you guys have a certain matchup that you saw here that you guys thought was a big upset, one that you don't agree with, what do you think should have won? Leave that all in the comment section down below. I appreciate all you guys tuning in and watching this. This has been a huge 3.5-hour stream. Jeez. I literally thought this was going to take an hour.
Hour and a half at most. is what I-
Hour and a half at most. But we've almost near tripled that. So thank you guys for everybody who tuned in
I'm
here
really
live. Everybody tuning in on YouTube. Thank you guys. Make sure you guys hit up mixer.com/WardogTV to watch this stuff live. And make sure you hit up the Discord to get the watch along schedule for the Harry Potter movies. And just like Monkey Boy in the chat, he says he's got to pee really bad. I've had to pee since like the third round. So I'm out. Thank you guys for joining me. And have a good one. Black Panther was underrated.
Yeah, was it though?
Underrated? Are you fucking kidding me?
Dude, it was way better than what we ranked it.
I mean,
Listen, you put Guardians 2 above Guardians 1. Your
Listen,
opinions
I
are
said they
just
were
like-
interchangeable.
Listen, like the fact that you even put them close together speaks to your level of knowledge.
Ooh.
Hey, I appreciate you watching the video and everything, but this isn't really like made by Marvel. Like there's no post-credit scene, so I don't really know why you're watching this. Like you can leave now. You saw everything. I promise.